Chapter 4494. At the end of the flower garden, the flying eaves of the pavilion were buried under layers of pavilions. The golden red setting sun lazily shone on a corner of the pavilion, reflecting on the pale face of a young girl in the pavilion. "Is he here? Have you prepared everything? Princess, can we not do this?" The little palace maid pinched the corner of her clothes, and her voice was so panicked that she was about to cry. "I only have this last chance to fight for my life. If he doesn't want to be accused of forcing his own sister to death right after ascending the throne, he should withdraw the order." Princess Jiankong clenched her pale fist and shouted harshly. She would never marry that stinky barbarian tribe man. That Prince Yuhua, she had seen him from afar. He looked rough and talked like a broken gong. From beginning to end, there was nothing that could satisfy her. He was a barbarian through and through. Why did he come to Zhangzhou to ask for her hand in marriage? She was Princess Jiankong, the beautiful and charming princess. How could she follow that barbarian and go to his whatever tribe? "Princess." The little palace maid nervously pinched the corner of her clothes and rubbed it hard. "His Majesty has already issued the imperial edict, so he definitely won't withdraw it. Princess, please don't do this. If you do this, this servant will be implicated and die." Now, in the palace, who doesn't know that His Majesty is not to be trifled with? Princess Jiankong was simply playing with fire. If she really angered His Majesty the Emperor, everything would be irreparable. "I don't care," Princess Jiankong shouted coldly. She reached out and pinched the little palace maid's arm. She stared at her with a gloomy gaze and pressed on step by step, repeatedly shouting, "Is it now that even you won't listen to me? Even you want to betray me? Do you really want to go and spread the news, saying that I'm faking my death here, saying that I ha?" A light laugh suddenly interrupted Princess Jiankong's chattering curses. Princess Jiankong suddenly turned her head. A pair of red eyes stared unwaveringly at the young girl who walked in with light and soft steps. "Hey, isn't this my good sister, Princess Jiankong? I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've made yourself look so pathetic." Rong Yuhu took a few steps forward with a grin and reached out to pick up a strand of Princess Jiankong's hair, clicking his tongue. "Seventh elder sister, what's wrong with you? How did you lose so much weight? If the Empress Dowager saw you, she would be very distressed." "Rong Yuhu, what are you trying to do?" Princess Jiankong abruptly pushed her hand away and said in a threatening manner, "What? Do you think that this princess is in dire straits now, that even you, a lowly palace maid's lowly child, can rush forward and step on this princess? This princess is telling you, no matter how destitute I am still Empress Lu's child. I'm the son of the main wife, and he was just the son of a lowly servant. What do you have to compete with me?" As soon as Rong Shanshan finished speaking, she was slapped hard on the face. "Princess," the little palace maid behind her exclaimed. Rong Shanshan's eyes were almost on fire and filled with blood. She turned her head inch by inch and coldly stared at the woman with the corners of her mouth slightly raised. She raised one hand high, but before she could slap it back, it was caught by Rong Yuhu. "Rong Shanshan, do you think that you're still the high and mighty Princess Jiankong?" Rong Yuhu put her left hand behind her back. "You want to make a move on me with your little skills?" Chapter 4495. Usually, I give in to you and tolerate your bad temper because of your mother. Do you think that with that pig brain of yours and your trashy skills, I would willingly stay by your side and let you beat and scold me? Do you think that I would be willing to come and go at your beck and call? You and I are both princesses. What do you have to be noble about? Do you know how disgusting you are? Showing your stupid face everywhere and offending people everywhere. You even want me to clean up the mess for you. I have long had enough of you." Princess Jiankong only felt a sharp pain coming from the arm she was holding. It was as if her arm was about to be pulled off by her. It was so painful that cold sweat dripped down her forehead. Princess," the little palace maid was anxious and angry. She repeatedly shouted, Ninth Princess, don't be like this. Ninth Princess, let go of our family's princess. Ninth Princess. Rong Yuhu, you slut. You and your slut mother are the same, Princess Jiankong only felt a crisp cracking sound coming from her arm. Her arm was actually torn apart by that bitch Rong Yu who, just like that. Slut? You keep saying that other people are sluts. Why don't you look in the mirror? Who looks more slutty now? Who is the slut? Rong Yu pushed her to the fan-shaped seat at the side of the pavilion and ruthlessly pressed her there, allowing Rong Shanshan to look at her battered and exhausted self on the water surface. Just because you were born of the Empress, since you were young, you relied on your identity to bully and humiliate others everywhere. Have you ever thought that there would be a day when you would lose your power and influence like today? That you would live like a dog like now? Princess Jiankong's head was pressed down by her 5 fingers. She had no choice but to lean over and look at her reflection on the water surface. I guess you still don't understand how you ended up in such a miserable state, right? Rong Yu seemed to have thought of something interesting and couldn't help but chuckle out loud. That idiot brother of yours fought for power with his majesty and ended up dying a violent death on the spot. Even a shrewd person like your mother doesn't dare to do anything that goes against his majesty. She only dares to hide in Renchuan Palace all day, eating vegetarian and praying to Buddha. Why are you so stupid? You actually want to ask your mother for help? Do you think that his majesty will let you go on account of your sibling relationship? Do you think his majesty is like me? When I was young, even if my favorite little snowball was killed by you, I didn't dare to say anything. I only dared to hold its body, secretly hid in a corner of the cold garden, cried for a whole night, and finally buried it. His majesty found it hard to tolerate you back in Flat Mountain Town. Rong Yu pressed her face firmly and took out a blueprint from his bosom, as if he was presenting a treasure. He handed it over to Rong Shanshan. Look, what is this? Do you still recognize him? Obviously, Rong Yu didn't expect Rong Shanshan to answer and continued excitedly. Isn't the woman in the painting very beautiful? Look, do you recognize this ferret? Princess. The young palace maid cried out in alarm. She wanted to rush forward, but was stopped by several palace maids beside Rong Yu. Rong Shanshan raised her head with great difficulty and looked at the woman in the drawing who was dressed in plain clothes and had beautiful eyes. She saw that she was holding a familiar little ferret in her arms. I got someone copy it. His Majesty has a painting that is 1,000 times better than this. Chapter 4496. His Majesty's painting of this woman looks like she's about to walk out of a painting. It's many times more realistic than this. Rong Yu clicked her tongue and put away the painting in her hand. I saw that you were so stupid, so I came over to give you a few pointers. Do you think you can still wait for His Majesty today? Let me tell you, His Majesty went to Lulin Courtyard. The second prince and his group are detained there. What do you think he's doing there? Rong Yu smiled wickedly. Now you understand, His Majesty doesn't care about your life or death. If you die, he'll marry your memorial tablet over. Whether you're alive or dead, you can't change your fate. Ha 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 ha. Rong Yu couldn't help but laugh wildly when she thought of this. Even the hand holding Rong Shanshan loosened a little. Princess Jiankong trembled all over and was finally able to prop herself up. She looked at her pitiful 9th sister, who had always followed her, as if she was looking a stranger. This 9th sister had never dared to speak loudly in front of her. She had always been willing to be beaten and scolded. She didn't expect that she could be so crazy now. Rong Yu. Rong Shanshan tightly clutched the fan-shaped chair behind her, her eyes revealing a severe expression. You dare to insult the first daughter of the Empress. You still don't understand? Rong Yu suddenly roared, shocking all the palace maids present. Even Rong Shanshan was startled by her. You are at the end of your road. Rong Yu pointed at her shoulder and poked and prodded. His Majesty doesn't want to see you at all, so he wants to send you far away to the wilderness. As she spoke, she giggled again and pushed Rong Shanshan down on the chair. She turned her head and called for the others to leave. Walking out of the pavilion, Rong Yu's footsteps paused, and she spoke coldly without turning her head. Stop acting. His Majesty won't return to the palace today, and he doesn't want to see you at all. Tomorrow morning, he will head to the Wang River. As for you, obediently follow that big black bear prince to the wilderness, ha ha ha. Rong Shan Shan sat paralyzed in the pavilion, her eyes blank for a moment. Princess, princess. The little palace maid couldn't help but call her twice. Rong Shan Shan abruptly pushed her away and stood up. She stumbled and slammed into a pillar at the side. Princess. Rong Yuhu's personal palace maid couldn't help but look back. The sound of crying and clamoring could be heard, and she could faintly hear the palace maid's heart-wrenching screams of princess. Princess, will something happen over there? Didn't I say just now? Rong Yuhu curled his lips. Even if Rong Shan Shan dies, the memorial tablet has to be married over. Besides, how could Rong Shan Shan be willing to die? Her lips curved into a sly smile. Princess, was the painting you mentioned just now really painted by His Majesty? Did you send someone to copy it? A little palace maid about 12 or 13 years old could not help but ask softly. Rong Yuhu's personal maid turned around and glared at her. Don't talk nonsense. How is that possible? Rong Yuhu pursed his lips and smiled. It was just a coincidence. She then took out the painting from her sleeve and glanced at it. The woman in the painting has a great background. Oh, Rong Yuhu didn't say anything else. Instead, she pursed her lips and smiled, putting the painting back in her sleeve. Chapter 4497. She had already sent someone to investigate who the woman in the painting was. Speaking of which, it was really interesting. Who would have known that this supreme emperor of Song Prefecture was wholeheartedly in love with that crown princess of the divine province? The little white mink was being carried by the crown princess, which meant this little white mink was probably the crown princess' favorite pet. Rong Shan Shan, this audacious bitch, almost hurt the little white mink. With His Majesty's fondness for that person, how could he allow her to continue being an eyesore in the palace? Moreover, His Majesty's loathing of the Rong siblings had long been expressed in words. Now that the Liu family had fallen, the monkeys had scattered, and Queen Dowager Liu was scared out of her wits and didn't dare to meddle in matters. Only an idiot like Rong Shan Shan couldn't understand the current situation. Why was the little white mink with His Majesty back at Flat Mountain Town? Rong Yuhu couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she racked her brains. But what harm was there in that? These questions already didn't seem that important. In any case, she had long wanted to remove this thorn in her side, Rong Shan Shan. She was the one who courted death, so she couldn't blame anyone else. Green Forest Courtyard. The second prince sat uneasily on the stone stool, swaying left and right as if something was poking at his butt. He couldn't sit still at all. His Majesty has arrived. The junior eunuch's shrill voice immediately caused the frightened second prince to jump up. He turned around in trepidation and saw a tall and elegant figure slowly walking into the pavilion built by the water. The willows outside the pavilion were thin, and the fragrance of lotus flowers lingered in the air. It was a beautiful scene. However, the second prince was drenched in cold and hot sweat. He was sweating profusely and did not even dare to raise his head. This subject greets your Majesty. The second prince suddenly threw himself to the ground and cried out tearfully, This subject deserves 10,000 deaths. I regret I shouldn't have listened to the whole family slander and did such a thing that is worse than pigs and dogs. Your Majesty, spare me, spare me. Second royal brother, why are you so nervous? Duan Yu chuckled as he helped the second prince up and gently pressed him onto the stone stool. The second prince's body stiffened, and he found it hard to speak. He only felt that the hand on his shoulder was bone-chillingly cold, as if it had come from hell. It was a ghostly hand made of white bones. The second prince trembled like a sieve. Duan Yu patted him with a chuckle. Why are you so scared? Second imperial brother. The second prince wished for nothing more than to weakly slide to the ground. He'd barely prop himself up and exchange a glance with Duan Yu. She only felt that the young man's peach blossom eyes were filled with a cold and heartless intent. He thought to himself that a young man from a lower star region had changed a lot during this period of time. Back then, this person wouldn't be like this. Just by sitting across from him, he could make people's hair stand on end. Could people really change so much? Have some tea, second royal brother. Duan Yu smiled faintly as he pushed a cup of warm tea in front of the second prince. The second prince stared at that cup of tea and knelt on the ground in fright. He repeatedly kowtowed and begged for mercy. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. This subject deserves 10,000 deaths, but please spare me on account of royal father. Second royal brother, what are you panicking for? Did you think that we poisoned your tea? Duan Yu smiled faintly and looked up at the person who was brought in from outside the waterside pavilion. Second imperial brother, look who's here. Chapter 4498. When the second prince looked up, he met the third prince's eyes, and both of them were startled. Third royal brother, quickly come sit next to us. Duan Yu waved his hand at the trembling third prince with a smile. Both of them were drenched in cold sweat, as if they were sitting on pins and needles. Drink tea. Duan Yu poured another cup for the third prince and pushed it in front of him. He looked at the second prince with a grin. Second royal brother, are you going to refuse us to our face? The second prince was scared half to death, and cold sweat poured down his forehead like a waterfall. Aye, I'll drink. The second prince picked up the teacup, but half of the tea in the cup was spilled out by his trembling hand. The tea spilled everywhere, and only a quarter of the tea remained in the cup. The second prince looked like he was going to sacrifice himself for a cause. He glanced at Duan Yu before raising his head and gulping down the rest of the tea. Third royal brother, it's your turn. Duan Yu pointed at the tea in front of the third prince. Your Majesty, second royal brother's rebellion has nothing to do with me. You can't wrongly accuse this official without any basis. The third prince's cold sweat also poured down in droplets. Ever since he was brought here from the estate, he had been considering countermeasures the entire time. The tragedy was that even after he walked into this waterside pavilion and saw His Majesty the Emperor sitting in front of him with a smile, he still didn't know how to save his life. This emperor of theirs looked young, but his methods were too vicious. The Ho family's several dozen people were annihilated without batting an eyelid. Now, was it second royal brother's turn? But he really didn't participate in it this time. Could it be that this young monarch couldn't bear to see him stay out of it and insisted on dragging him into this mess as well? Third royal brother? Duan Yu looked up, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Are you going to defy the imperial edict and be disrespectful? The third prince gritted his teeth as he picked up the teacup with trembling hands and drained it in one gulp. He put down the teacup heavily, and when he looked up, he saw that the monarch had suddenly changed into a smile. His handsome face was filled with gentleness. That's right. He smiled and turned to look at the second prince, who was drenched in cold sweat. Second brother, you have committed a grave sin. Even I cannot forgive you. There are more than 700 of your followers. I thought they were all instigated by you, so I killed a few of their leaders. The rest were exiled to the land of thorns by me. When the second prince and the third prince heard this, they couldn't help but tremble. What kind of place was the land of thorns? That would be hell. Other than the endless desert and desolation, there were only thorns all over the ground. There were no other plants, no flowers, no food, no water. The scariest thing was that after being banished to the land of thorns, there was no way to return. There was a powerful heavenly Tao barrier in that place. Although they didn't know what it was, they knew one thing. If you go in, you won't be able to come back. In a land of thorns, anything could happen for a mouthful of food. There was no end to the wilderness, no hope, no light. This was the ultimate nightmare. Plop! A heavy thud landed on the ground. When the third prince returned to his senses, he turned to look and saw the second prince twitching on the ground, his limbs trembling nonstop. Your Majesty! The third prince looked back in horror. Chapter 4499. Colluding with the Ho family to privately build large batches of lightning bolts. Acting out of selfishness, he conspired to destroy Phoenix Emperor City's 12 main roads. We grant him an intact corpse. Duan Yu fiddled with the cup in his hand before suddenly smiling at the third prince. Third royal brother, we will be leaving the capital tomorrow. The third prince's entire body abruptly turned cold, and a chill emerged from the depths of his bones. Old Second took advantage of the fact that he was leaving the capital for Luyu Pass to secretly play some underhanded tricks. As a result, Old Second died. The whole family also died. Not a single one of Old Second's retainers was saved. This cruel and sinister young monarch purposely called him here today to let him personally witness how he dealt with second royal brother. In the end, the third prince was supported out of Lulin Manor. Reportedly, when he left, he even tripped on the threshold, and his entire body was a bit limp. Your Majesty, like a wisp of smoke, Ing lightly floated into the pavilion and called out softly. Duan Yu stood facing the water with his hands clasped behind his back. His gaze landed on the clear water in the pond, and he didn't turn around even when he heard Ying's call. Ing lowered his head and continued. News came from the palace that Princess Jiankong died just now. She died from touching a pillar. Duan Yu slowly turned around and stared coldly at Ing as he slowly reached out his hand. Ing quickly walked up and presented a communication jade talisman with both hands. He lowered his head and continued. Xiao sent the news. Earlier, the ninth princess and Princess Jiankong quarreled in the flower pavilion. Princess Jiankong suddenly touched the pillar, and the royal maids didn't react in time. She probably didn't react herself either. Duan Yu curled his lips, and his voice was endlessly cold. She originally thought that someone would catch her, but who knew that she really touched the pillar? The noble Princess Jiankong actually died in such an aggrieved and comical manner. She probably never imagined that she would have such an ending. With the ninth princess's cultivation, if she wanted to save her, she could. Ing coughed lightly and said, Xiao also said that the ninth princess secretly hid a painting. What painting? Ing took out a painting and bowed to hand it to Duan Yu. The latter reached out to take it, and a harsh glint flitted across his eyes after a glance. He angrily said, What kind of mess is this painting? The painting shattered into pieces, falling down like snow. Your Majesty, what about agreeing to the marriage alliance between the barbarian tribe and Kawa? Duan Yu was expressionless, but his voice was cynical. There are so many princesses in the current dynasty, just randomly pick one and send it over. His voice paused slightly. From what we see, Rong Yuhu should be the one. He's so scheming and likes to put on airs all the time. I heard that the Prince of Niwa has many concubines. Send her over and let her get along with the prince's wives and concubines. Yes, Ing answered in a low voice. Seeing that she's done so many things, I'm sure she wants to replace you. I'll definitely be happy. Is that so? Your Majesty, are you sure? Find 2 shadow guards to follow her. Don't touch the pillar again. Duan Yu coldly ordered. We don't want to see her again on the day we return to the palace. Yes, tomorrow, they will be able to leave this foul place. With a flash of light, Arbor's group flew out of the teleportation array. He's running away again. Mu Xiaoxue is pretty good at running. Sir Jojo lowered his head and looked at the communication jade talisman in his hand. 3 miles to the southeast. Everyone rushed into the teleportation talisman array again. The talisman array flashed many times, and the group ran back and forth about a dozen times. Princess Wushuang facepalmed. Arbor silently took out 10 sets of teleportation talisman arrays and coldly said, They won't die of exhaustion. Chapter 4500. At first, Arbor really didn't expect Mu Xiaoxue's group to be so good at running like rats. After they ran back and forth to the main control room several times, they missed each time. Arbor silently left Baldy Tion in the main control room of the mausoleum and had him send her a message in time. Then, she led her group and chased after them. The little stoic and Mu Xiaoxue's group were completely at odds. She wanted to see how much resources Mu Xiaoxue had and whether her teleportation talisman matrix could be more extravagant than her. Exhaust them to death. She wanted to see if Mu Xiaoxue's heaven-ranked charm master, Luo He, could replenish the teleportation talisman matrix's talisman energy in such a short time. Speaking of which, this Luo He and that Elder Zhuang hid themselves really well. At the entrance of the mystic realm on the deserted island, these two people weren't with Mu Xiaoxue's group at all. Zhao Yi, Gu Yishuan, and a few elders from the City of Shadows led Mu Xiaoxue, Lin Miao and that group of old, weak women and children. At that time, their battle lineup really didn't look like much. The appearance of this heaven-ranked charm master, Luo He, was really a bit surprising. In addition to Elder Zhuang, this late-stage, immortal venerable expert, the strength of Mu Xiaoxue's group increased by more than tenfold. Not only that, there was also a formation expert in Mu Xiaoxue's group who had deciphered 1/3 of the 9-palace maze formation. At this time, he was still in hiding like a venomous snake in the dark. No one knew when he would spring out to deliver a fatal blow. A charm master, an immortal venerable expert, and a great formation master? From the looks of it, it was quite a big show. What did Mu Xiaoxue and her group want to gain from this trip to the Tianji mystic realm? Arbor waved her sleeves lightly, and countless poison-tailed butterflies flew out from her sleeves and chased in all directions. Following that, the talismans drawn in the void were pasted one after another in the direction of the poison-tailed butterfly. They transformed into all kinds of ferocious beasts and birds of prey in the air, galloping and roaring as they flashed away. Princess Wushuang stood there in a daze for a long time. Then, she closed her mouth slightly. Sister-in-law? What talisman is that? Heaven-level 100-beast talisman. Arbor frowned in dissatisfaction. Although the 100-beast talisman produced many ferocious beasts, there were no dragons or phoenixes. There were no particularly strong, ferocious beasts. So how could they chase after others? Princess Wushuang closed her mouth and mumbled, "It's already very good." This little sister-in-law was indeed a ferocious little fiend. The moment she made a move, she used dozens of 100-beast talismans drawn in the void. Together with the poison-tailed butterflies, they chased after Mu Xiaoxue and the others. Mu Xiaoxue must have had a few hundred lifetimes of bad luck. She had already told her not to provoke her sister-in-law, yet she still had to act like a little white flower. She had offended her sister-in-law. Given her sister-in-law's temperament, she would definitely not let Mu Xiaoxue off. Sister-in-law, do you have any grudges with Mu Xiaoxue of the City of Shadows? Princess Wushuang asked cautiously. Arbor glanced at her. Resentment? She shook her head. It wasn't resentment, it was hatred. Her mother had single-handedly manipulated this great hatred from the sins she had committed in 2 lifetimes. If you didn't properly repay this whole Master Mu, she, Arbor, had truly lived in vain. An icy glint flitted through the little stoic's eyes, and she lowered her eyes and said, "Let's rest here first." Chapter 4501. She would let the 100-beast talisman track them for a while. Escape? She wanted to see where they could run to. At most, they would run around in circles in the Fectus secret realm. At the same time, Elder Zhuang, Luo He, and the others were in a sorry state. They had just come out of the teleportation talisman array and were about to enter it again. Luo He suddenly raised his hand and said in a low voice, "Wait, what is it?" Elder Zhuang asked in a low voice, his old eyes looking around vigilantly. "They didn't chase us." Luo He waved his hand. "I can't feel the flow of talisman energy. They must have stopped." Everyone let out a sigh of relief. Lin Miao sneered. "They must have used up all their teleportation talisman arrays." "What do you know?" Luo He glanced coldly at the stupid woman. "The Crown Princess and the others were able to follow our teleportation talisman arrays and come here with great precision. That only means one thing. They must have a Heaven Realm Talisman Master among them who can make a directional teleportation talisman array." Luo He said with a dark expression. "As soon as they replenish their talisman energy, the array can start teleporting again. We have to take this time to rest. There will be a tough battle ahead." Lingener was silent for a while, then said, "There are rumors that the Crown Princess is an extremely powerful talisman master." Lin Miao couldn't take it anymore. "Lingener, I wanted to ask you before. Have you been scared out of your wits by that, Arbor? Why are you always on her side and speaking up for her? You even gave in to that woman and gave her 10 million spirit coins. You're a disgrace to the Lin family. Then what can you do if you don't give in to her? Lin Zhin'er disagreed with her sister's words. Can you crush others, or can you rebuke them back? Lin Zhin'er couldn't do anything but argue with others. In the end, she still had to mediate and compensate them. Lin Zhin'er felt wronged. Did they think she was happy to clean up their mess? She had only lent a helping hand because of her junior sister, Mu Xiaoxue. Stop quarreling. Zhao, he suddenly roared and glared at the two of them. Why are you quarreling all day long? Little junior sister is awake. Zhao Yi, who had wanted to scold Gu Yishuan, hurriedly turned around and ran over. He pushed Gu Yishuan away and reached out to take Mu Xiaoxue into his arms. He called out softly, little junior sister, how do you feel? Mu Xiaoxue felt as if she had just returned from the gates of hell. Although she had opened her eyes, she could not speak or move her hands. She could only stare at Zhao Yi with her clear, snow-like eyes that were filled with anxiety and fear. Zhao Yi's heart was almost melted by her gaze. He reached out and gently hugged Mu Xiaoxue, as if a little louder could scare her to death. He said carefully, little junior sister, don't be nervous. It's okay. The substitute curse on your body has already been removed by Master Luo. The life-reaping talisman still has some effect on you. You can only rest for a while. In another day, you will be able to speak. Don't be afraid, junior sister. I will definitely be by your side to protect you. Mu Xiaoxue glanced at him, and a smile slowly appeared on her stiff little face. If Zhao Yi could look carefully, he would be able to see the disdain in his junior sister's eyes. It was disdain. Mu Xiaoxue was really annoyed with him and Gu Yishuan at this moment. Chapter 4502. All day long, they claimed to be her protectors, saying that they would protect her from harm. But the problem was, did they have that ability? With their pitiful cultivation, they couldn't even withstand a finger from the venerable peach blossom immortal by Arbor's side. Really, what could they use to protect her? They were all boasting. Men were all such untrustworthy dogs. They were useless. If they weren't strong enough, how could Xiao Shui be in such a miserable state? She was like a stray dog, running around in this secret realm. In fact, she had already woken up, but because she couldn't speak and didn't want to open her eyes, she pretended to be unconscious. In this secret realm, they had been running for a full day and 2 nights. They were like wild chickens and dogs that were being chased by their owners, and they fled miserably, pitifully, and in a miserable state as if they had nowhere to go. In more than 10 years, she, Mu Xiaoxue, had never been in such a miserable state. The City of Shadows, Mu family's 4th miss, who had always lived elegantly and calmly, was intelligent, gentle, and knew how to use her intelligence to control and use men to get what she wanted. When had she ever been forced to be like a dog, walking back and forth in this mystic realm? It was as if someone had slammed the door on him and beat him while he was down. Little junior sister, you must be hungry. Come, eat something first. Zhao, he took out an oiled paper bag and helped Mu Xiaoxue up, letting her drink some water to moisten her throat. He then broke a steamed bun and fed it to her. Lin Miao watched coldly from the side and sneered. Lin Zhin'er immediately turned her head and gave her a warning look. Her meaning was very clear. You are now in the City of Shadows team, so you have to hold back your anger. Even if you have opinions about Miss Xiao Shui, don't say it out loud and anger everyone. Why are you glaring at me like that? Lin Miao lifted her foot and walked towards a big tree. I know my status. Why would I say anything about the City of Shadows, little princess that you all love and protect? It's not like I have nothing better to do. Lin Miao rolled her eyes and was about to sit down beside the tree. Just as she was about to sit down, someone beside her shouted, Tiger Wolf Beast! There's a Tiger Wolf Beast! Ah, Tiger Wolf Beast! Lin Miao was startled and quickly summoned her long sword. Without even looking, she slashed towards the source of the sound. The sword slashed at the disciple who was wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf, and directly cut off a piece of flesh from his arm. The disciple immediately burst into tears, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. "Ah, Lin Myoer, you? Why did you slash me?" Lin Myoer was also very surprised. She had clearly cut down a ferocious tiger wolf beast just now. Taking a closer look, the tiger wolf beast pounced from behind the disciple and bit his leg. "What is it?" The disciples of the City of Shadows who were resting all stood up in a panic. They drew their swords and sabers and slashed at the wolves, tigers, and leopards that besieged them. "It seems to be an illusion." "Fuck, it's an illusion." It was no wonder that when she swung her sword down, she missed, and the sword edge sliced off a piece of flesh from that disciple. It turned out that these tiger wolf beasts did not have physical bodies at all. "Luo," he said in a deep voice, "everyone come behind me. This is the 100 Beast Talisman. It doesn't have a physical body." Chapter 45:03. Without a physical body, what should we do? Can we only use all our spiritual power to attack? What will happen if we run out of spiritual power? While everyone was talking at once, their movements were also very fast. All of them gathered behind Luohi. Only the disciple left behind by Lin Myoer was torn to pieces under the attack of several tiger and wolf beast phantoms. Mu Xiaoxue's face was full of grief and indignation, and her eyes were slightly accusing as she looked at Lin Myoer, who ran to her side. Seeing this, Lin Jiner's face showed a trace of embarrassment, and she quickly comforted her. "Little junior sister, Sister Myoer didn't do it on purpose. She was just too scared, so she left junior brother and ran back by herself." Lin Myoer looked down at Mu Xiaoxue and scolded in her heart, "Pretentious." But on the surface, she ignored Mu Xiaoxue and stood silently behind Lin Jiner. Was there something wrong with this woman's head? Lin Myoer sneered in her heart. "Does she think I'm like her, surrounded by the halo of the Virgin Mary, shining with holy light everywhere and saving cats and dogs when I see them? What a joke at the moment of life and death. It's good enough that she can run back with her own legs. She's just a woman who lies there and has people to serve and protect her. What right does she have to say that she's cold-hearted and doesn't know how to save her companions? What a joke. If this woman didn't have so many helpers around her, she wouldn't have to endure this ignorant woman again and again." Luo, he took out a dozen Xian Yin talismans from his pocket and threw them out. Streaks of baleful Yin energy then pounced on the phantoms of tigers, wolves, and other beasts. Everyone's hearts were covered in cold sweat as they stared at the two concentrated forces colliding. Those phantoms of tigers and wolves wantonly grabbed and bit at the streams of Yin energy, and for a moment there was an inexplicable feeling of being evenly matched. On Luo He's forehead, cold sweat involuntarily dripped down. Mu Xiaoxue was burning with anxiety, and her fingers couldn't help but curl. If this situation continued, their situation would really be very bad. "Master Luo, I think we should move as soon as possible." Zhao Yi hugged his little junior sister with both hands, and seeing her very pale face, he couldn't help but feel anxious. Little junior sister was really too pitiful. Look at how scared she was by that crazy woman. He couldn't bear to see his junior sister cry the most. The moment he saw her cry, he felt as if someone had dug out a piece of his heart with their fingernails. It was extremely painful. Little junior sister was such a weak and delicate girl. She should be raised in a boudoir and be provided with luxurious clothing and luxurious clothes. When she was free, she should play with flowers and play the zither. When she was busy, she should read books and learn how to write. She shouldn't have come to such a dangerous place, and she shouldn't have met a crazy demoness like Arbor. Zhao Yi gritted his teeth and said, "This Arbor must be jealous of junior sister's talent and beauty. That's why he's trying to kill junior sister without any reason." Lin Myoer and her best friend, Gu Yisin, looked at each other. She couldn't take it anymore and said, "Although I don't like Arbor, he's arrogant and unreasonable." Lin Myoer threw away her sister Lin Jiner's hand that was tugging at her sleeve and continued with a mocking expression. "But let me say something. Talent, beauty, and talent. I feel that the little princess of the City of Shadows is really not comparable to him at all." Chapter 45:04. Would Arbor be jealous of someone who is inferior to him in every way? Lin Muir couldn't help but roll her eyes. She just thought that this senior brother Zhao was very ridiculous. She said this because she had been disgusted by him for the past few days. Now that she heard senior brother Zhao's strange remarks, she really couldn't help but want to refute him. Zhao and Gui Xuan had been carrying the useless Mu Xiaoxue here and there, taking good care of her all the time. Every day, they would talk about their junior sister, and the two of them would even fight over her. She felt very disgusted just looking at them. Her sister Lin Zhen'er was a woman, so it was more convenient for her to do everything. Zhao and Gui Xuan were just Mu Xiaoxue's senior brothers, not husband and wife. They didn't avoid suspicion and hugged each other all day long. It was really disgusting. Mu Xiaoxue didn't wake up before, so she didn't have the right to speak. At this moment, she had already woken up, but she seemed to have gotten used to the feeling of being served by her two senior brothers. She didn't feel at all that it was inappropriate for a young and unmarried woman like her to be hugged by a grown man like this on his lap. Was she used to being held by men like this? What a bitch, who knew who gave birth to her. It was said that Mu Xiaoxue wasn't the daughter of the first madam of the City of Light and Shadow. Her mother should just be a concubine. No wonder like mother like daughter. She didn't avoid suspicion at all. Today, she hugged this man, and tomorrow, she would be intimate with another man. It was really disgusting to watch. After Lin Muir finished speaking, everyone glared at her angrily. With this slap in the faces of all the men present were all swollen. Especially Zhao Yi, who said that Arbor was jealous of his junior sister, was refuted by Lin Muir's words. He was so angry that his eyes were wide open, and smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. Lin Muir, are you looking for trouble? Look at your face along the way. You are neither cold nor warm to our junior sister. Our junior sister doesn't owe you anything. That's right. How can you insult people like this? What do you mean by inferior to Arbor in every way? How can Arbor compare to our junior sister? A group of brainless protectors of the City of Shadows caught Lin Muir and roared at her. Everyone was talking at once, making a lot of noise. Guisin was dumbfounded. Previously, she had only heard her best friend, Lin Muir, casually mention it once or twice. Now that she had witnessed the blind protection of the disciples of the City of Shadows, she was simply speechless. Today was an eye-opener for him. Wait, how did you find out that the Crown Princess is not as good as your miss? Guisin felt like she was about to die of laughter. Gui Xuan's face darkened. He didn't give his sister any face at all. Guisin, think carefully before you speak. Guisin was both angry and amused. So, all the men here were Mu Xiaoxue's brainless admirers? Mu Xiaoxue was really something. Do you still have the time to argue with each other here? Luo, he abruptly shook off several tins of talismans, and traces of blood faintly flowed down from the corners of his mouth. He couldn't help but shout angrily. He was fighting with his life on the line here, but these dregs still had the time to fight each other like dogs biting each other's mouths. If you don't want to live, then get out of the team. Luo, he said coldly. No one here has the obligation to save your lives. The disciples of the City of Shadows who were scolding Lin Muir shut their mouths when they heard this. Zhao Yi glared fiercely at Lin Muir and turned to Luo He. Master Luo, there's no time. We must move as soon as possible. Chapter 4505. Luo He gritted his teeth and threw out dozens of dark talismans. At the same time, he turned around and threw out a teleportation talisman array that enveloped everyone. Let's go. Thump, 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 thump. Everyone scrambled out of the talisman array and fell to the ground in a flurry. A young man shouted angrily, "You're stepping on my face. Get off me. What's going on? Why is this talisman array so bumpy?" Luo, he spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. He looked down at the shattered jade talismans in his hand, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. Elder Zhuang reached out to support him and said in a low voice, "Meditate immediately and recover as soon as possible." Luo, he didn't say much to him. His current situation was very bad. The continuous overdraft of talisman energy had pushed his body to a critical point. If he didn't recover soon, his talisman energy would probably dry up. Elder Zhuang stood up and glanced at everyone, then walked to Mu Xiaoxue and nodded respectfully at her. "Young miss, we need Grandmaster Mao Yang's help now." Mu Xiaoxue couldn't speak or move. She curled her fingers with great effort. Elder Zhuang nodded and apologized. He reached out and took off a blue crystal necklace from her neck. As the spatial container emitted a bright light, an old man in his 70s with white hair and a beard floated out. His cheekbones were high on both sides, and there was a trace of gloominess between his eyebrows. "Grandmaster Mao." Elder Zhuang cupped his hands and said, "Please set up a concealing defensive array here. Grandmaster Luo needs to recover." The old man named Mao Yang's eyelids fluttered slightly. He said with an indifferent attitude, "Even if I put in the effort to set up a concealing defensive array, it might not be able to escape his eyes. This mystic realm has a guardian. He knows the terrain and surroundings like the back of his hand. Do you think you old, weak, sick, and disabled people can escape?" A trace of anger flashed across Elder Zhuang's eyes. "Master Mao, don't forget the oath you made before you left the branch. You vowed to protect the young miss with your life." "Umph," Mao Yang snorted coldly. "I only need to protect young Mississippi." Old man Zhuang was amused by his lukewarm attitude. "Grandmaster Mao, that's enough." Mao Yang sneered and waved his hand. "For the sake of Miss, I'll help you again." He turned around and gloomily glanced at the many disciples of the City of Shadows. The disciples were swept by his gloomy gaze and couldn't help but secretly shiver. This old senior had come out once or twice before. According to Junior Sister, he was a very impressive array master. However, his gaze was so sinister and terrifying that no one dared to look him in the eye. Mao Yang stood in the middle of the crowd and glanced at everyone with malicious intentions. Suddenly, he flicked his fingers, and several polished, round crystals were sent flying into the air by the force between his fingers. A curtain of light shrouded the area and quickly covered everyone present. If someone was outside at this moment, they would definitely notice that the auras of the 100 people present were all concealed in an instant. It was as if all of them had sunk into the sea in an instant and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 4506. Arbor, Emolian, and the others walked out of the teleportation glyph array in a single file and circled the area twice. These people are quite good at hiding. Princess Wushuang looked around and said, "Could it be that they have escaped? They're still here." Arbor waved his finger and caught the shadow of 100 Beast Talisman. He said coldly and expressionlessly, "They must be hiding in some kind of concealment array. Right here." She turned to look at Emolian. The latter nodded knowingly and waved her hand. The faint shadow drew an arc in the air, like a floating silk ribbon, and gently embedded itself in the air. Crown Prince Rong raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, "This Prince Mo is too powerful." He found the concealment array with just a wave of his hand. Then a black shadow leaped over. Everyone felt as if a few things had flown past their eyes. They were as fast as a few streamers of light. Then they suddenly drilled into the concealment array. After a few seconds, the concealment array appeared in front of them. Mu Xiaoxue and the others were all sitting in the array. After removing the concealment aura, and Wu Shuang and the others saw that Mu Xiaoxue and the others were sitting in a transparent bowl. They were facing a gloomy old man in his 70s with white hair and beard across the defensive wall. Ding Yun and the others could see clearly now. What the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal had hurriedly thrown in were a few seeds. Now, they were leaping up and growing among the crowd, quickly blossoming and bearing fruit. Their branches and leaves were luxuriant as they climbed up the defensive walls on all sides. After the wood spirit had climbed up the defensive wall, fine scratches had appeared on it. There were also a few cracks that were not very obvious. However, as the seeds in the array continued to climb, it seemed as if they were going to break through the defensive wall. The commotion woke up the disciples of the City of Shadows who could not calm down to meditate and recover. They jumped up in shock and hurriedly summoned swords and axes from their consciousness. They charged at the plants, vines, and stems that were crawling like snakes around them. However, these growing plants were born from the wood spirits. As long as the venerable peach blossom immortal saint power was endless, they would not be able to cut off these things no matter how hard they tried. With their cultivation and spiritual energy, there was a huge difference between them and a certain peach blossom. Once they met, it would be a bloody massacre without a doubt now that these people were all trapped in this concealment defensive array. Their aura concealment had been removed, and their defensive powers seemed to be unsatisfactory. As the array formation's aura gradually weakened, Old Man Zhuang couldn't help but frown and look at the array formation Grandmaster. Grandmaster Mao, why are you panicking? Mao Yang sneered. She raised her hand, grabbed a random City of Shadows disciple, and slapped him hard on the head. Everyone was dumbfounded. Arbor's group wasn't the only one who was speechless. The disciples of the City of Shadows inside the array were the most frightened. Had Grandmaster Mao Yang gone mad? Does he even know how to differentiate between friend and foe? Was he a traitor that the Crown Prince and Crown Princess of the Divine Land had planted among them? What are you doing? Old Man Zhuang said angrily. Of course, he did not believe that Mao Yang would betray the organization. That was simply impossible. No one knew how terrible the consequences of betraying the Patriarch would be. Don't be nervous. Mao Yang's eyes flashed with a maniacal smile. His gloomy face was filled with a strange expression. Can't you see that I'm trying to strengthen the array formation? Arbor glanced at the crazy old man and silently took out the mirror of misfortune from his pocket. Chapter 45:07. Master. What are you doing, Master? Master. Zhao Yi was stunned. Zhao Yi's face twitched as he looked at Master Mao Yang, who seemed to have gone mad. This master was too scary. Suddenly, he twisted off a junior brother's head. Immediately, blood flowed like a river within the defensive formation, and the smell of blood filled the air. His junior sister, Mu Xiaoxue, was so frightened that she trembled in his arms. He could feel it, but he could only hug her tightly with both arms. Don't worry, junior sister. We'll be fine, Zhao Yi whispered to Mu Xiaoxue. Mu Xiaoxue's eyes were filled with fear. She struggled to roll her eyes and used her gaze to signal Zhao Yi to look at the ground. Zhao Yi screamed and quickly ran to the side with Mu Xiaoxue. He looked down and saw that a circular formation had appeared on the ground. Lines of small words were floating in the air. They were stained with blood and suddenly appeared in the formation. What's that? Holy shit. What kind of demonic array is this? It can even suck people's blood. The disciples of the City of Shadows retreated in horror. They looked at each other with stiff faces and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Mao Yang's actions were too frightening, especially when he tore apart a disciple of the City of Shadows without any explanation. Everyone present was terrified. Just now, they had all seen it clearly. When Master Mao tore apart the disciple of the City of Shadows, he did not hesitate at all. It was as if he was not tearing apart a person, but a chicken. Was it a chicken head or a duck head? Everyone sucked in a few breaths of cold air and took a few steps back. Being in the same team as such a crazy person, the sense of crisis was too strong. Because you did not know when your teammates would suddenly go crazy and tear your head off from your neck. Arbor looked at them hiding in a mess inside the defensive formation. He took out the mirror of misfortune from his sleeve without saying a word. He held the mirror of misfortune in his hand and stared coldly at the disciples of the City of Shadows. At this moment, the defensive formation in front of them began to change. As the blood flowed into the formation diagram on the ground and slowly gathered at the center of the formation base, the entire defensive wall began to gradually thicken. Sure enough, it's just as that old bastard Mao Yang said. He's using human blood to construct and strengthen this concealment and defensive grand formation. If the blood source continued to flow into the formation base, the formation in front of him would soon disappear into the air again. At that time, it would take a lot of effort to make it appear again. Arbor didn't want to waste any more time with these people. The little stoic turned her head to exchange a look with Prince Mo and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. Then, she raised her hand and tossed it without any explanation. The pitch-black realm of misfortune suddenly emitted a soft black halo as it floated in the air. Suddenly, it crashed into a corner of the defensive wall and flew in with a whoosh. The disciples of the City of Shadows looked over in confusion. They saw that the bead was so black that it was translucent and glowing. At a glance, they could tell that it was an extraordinary item. He refined the heart of the mystic realm. Mao Yang and Elder Zhuang, who were separated by the defensive wall, had yet to react. When they saw the realm of misfortune break through the wall and smelled the unique aura of a mystic realm, they instantly became enraged, and their eyes turned red with rage. The little stoic casually took out a heart of a mystic realm. What was she doing? Could it be that she wanted to explode this mystic realm in front of them and let the destructive force kill all of them? Chapter 4508. What's this? Several disciples of the City of Shadows were the first to be enveloped by the black light of the mirror of misfortune. In an instant, they were sucked in by a powerful and irresistible force. Everyone was so shocked that their jaws almost fell off. Their eyes were as wide as a bull's as they murmured, "It's sucking us in. It's sucking us in. It's sucking us in. It's sucking us in." Yes, it was sucking them in. Among the hundreds of disciples of the City of Shadows, 20 to 30 of them had been sucked into the mirror of misfortune. "Elder, elder, save us, elder." The elders of the City of Shadows were drenched in cold sweat. They were caught off guard and almost couldn't resist this irresistible suction force. How could they save people in such a situation? One of the elders shouted in a deep voice, "Run! Run? What a joke! What could they run to?" The black bead had crashed into the defensive wall by itself, but it didn't mean that these disciples could escape from the defensive array set up by Mao Yang. This was like catching a group of turtles in a jar. The disciples of the City of Shadows scurried away like headless flies. Some of the bolder ones drew their swords and slashed at the black bead in the air. Unfortunately, the sword was completely blocked by a terrifying force when it landed on the outer layer of light of the black bead. The disciples couldn't take even half a step forward. Their hands were numb from holding the sword. In less than 3 seconds, they heard a series of clanking sounds, and the long sword broke into pieces and fell to the ground. "Elder, elder!" the disciple cried out almost at the same time. Unfortunately, before his unpleasant cries could spread, he was sucked into the mirror of misfortune. As such, more than half of the unlucky disciples of the City of Shadows had been sucked into the mirror of misfortune. The remaining people were all pale. They stuck close to the defensive wall and stared blankly at Master Mao Yang, who was standing in the center of the array base. This master was definitely a person who cheated his teammates. In such a situation, he didn't open the defensive wall to let them escape. Instead, his eyes were red with greed as he stared fixedly at the black bead suspended in the middle. "Aha!" Mao Yang couldn't help but laugh crazily, muttering to himself, "There really is someone in this world who can refine a mystic realm." His malicious eyes looked at Xiao Mu and abruptly locked onto her. Without waiting for him to exert his pressure, Mao Yang felt a heavy force rushing out from the side and dispelling his aura. His eyes were bloodshot, and his gaze gradually shifted to the man beside the little stoic. "Young man, your realm is very unstable." The old man's lips curled into a devilish smile as he sized up Mo Lien without the slightest scruple. "TSK, TSK, TSK. His triangular eyes that were suffused with a cold glint stared fixedly at Mo Lien for quite a while, as if he had seen a prey that he was extremely interested in. Not bad at all. Young man, there must be some sort of secret in your body. Otherwise, with your age, how could you possibly reach such a level? It's a pity that you're impatient. If you spent 2 or 3 years in seclusion and stabilized your realm, this old man really wouldn't be your match. As for now..." Chapter 4509. The old man suddenly removed the defensive wall in front of him and blasted out a dark purple thunderbolt. The thunderbolt roared, and a large area of intertwined thunderbolts covered Emolien's body. It was like a huge net made of thousands of threads that completely enveloped the cold-faced young prince. "How are you now?" Emo Yin asked coldly. His body shook slightly and broke free from the thunderbolt net that bound him. Moon Raven suddenly appeared in his hand, and a surge of black fire instantly counterattacked. The man's bone-chilling voice faintly rose into the air. "I'm still in existence that you can't fight back against." Boom! The old man's face darkened. He quickly retreated a few steps and crossed his arms in front of him to block. He suddenly felt a ball of black fire burning in front of him and instantly burned off his 2 sleeves. 2 black marks were burned on his arms. However, with his early-stage divine venerable cultivation base, his skin was not damaged. "What's going on?" A glimmer of disbelief flashed in the old man's eyes. The young man in front of him clearly had an unstable aura. Even if he faintly emitted the aura of a divine venerable, it was obvious that he had not properly stabilized his cultivation base. It should be said that there was something in his body that had caused his cultivation base to soar, but this young man had not properly integrated with it to stabilize it. What a waste of God's gift. Since that was the case, why not snatch it from him and make it his own? Since he did not cherish such a supreme treasure, what's the point of having it? You want to snatch it? Emo Yin was meticulous and experienced. He could guess what was on someone's mind with just a slight movement in their eyes. Thinking of this, he found it extremely funny. He had never seen such a greedy person. So what if his cultivation base is unstable? He can still crush you, old man. 2 pitch-black lotus patterns flowed in the depths of the crown prince's eyes. He raised his hand, and a black lotus mark appeared on his palm. Suddenly, he took a step forward and flashed through the void like a bolt of lightning. He swiftly arrived in front of Grandmaster Mao Yang and slapped his palm that contained ancient saint power toward the latter's shoulder. "Let me teach you the principles of being a man. If you don't have the strength, don't covet other people's things." Mao Yang subconsciously raised his hand to block, but his heart skipped a beat when his palms touched. Crack! His hierarch realm body was fractured by a single slap. A sudden force threw him down for the sky. His shoulder was covered by someone's palm, and he was slapped down from above. With a loud bang, his face was smashed into the formation diagram. Everyone's jaws dropped in shock. Old Man Zhuang was so shocked that he staggered and almost fell to the ground. Others might not know the level of Grandmaster Mao Yang's cultivation, but he was very clear about it. Grandmaster Mao Yang could be considered one of the top guest elders of the Soaring Heavens Hall. Even with his level of cultivation, he was still slapped down from above by the Crown Prince. Then who else here could stop him? Old Man Zhuang felt a chill run down his spine. He couldn't help but shudder. He quickly moved to Xiao Xue's side and whispered to her, "Miss, we can't stay here any longer. We must leave immediately." Ugh! Mao Yang spat out a mouthful of blood. Before he could react, he felt a weight on his shoulder. The Raven Moon's sword pierced through the young prince's shoulder and nailed him to the ground. Using your blood to construct this formation diagram should be more effective, right? Chapter 45:10. Emo Yin's expression was cold as she pulled out her sword from his shoulder. Without waiting for the old man to move, she pointed her sword at his throat. "I advise you not to move." The old man's pupils constricted as he stared at the young man in front of him. Just what kind of terrifying power was that? When a young man slapped him down from the sky, Mao Yang thought that he was going to die. He didn't think that under such power, he would be able to survive 2 more hits. Shock appeared in his eyes, and Mao Yang's body trembled unconsciously. Yes, let's talk things over. A wise man knows when to retreat. He didn't expect to meet such a troublesome person on this trip to the arcane realm. "Didn't you want to snatch it?" Emo Yin sneered at him. She flipped her hand and shot out several pitch-black lotus seals. They landed on the old man at close range. As soon as the seemingly light and ethereal lotus seal landed on Mao Yang's body, he felt a vast force of impact coming head-on. His body shattered like glass, and his bones, flesh, and blood all shattered. The old man's eyes turned red as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Elder Zhuang and the others behind him with difficulty and forced out a word from between his teeth. Go! Elder Zhuang hurriedly nodded at him. With one hand, he grabbed the heaven-level Charmaster Luo He, who was still meditating, and with the other, Mu Xiaoxue, who was lying in Zhao Yi's arms. With a whoosh, they jumped into the air. Mao Yang's figure suddenly appeared beside Elder Zhuang. He was so fast that no one noticed how he moved. Mo Yin looked down expressionlessly. She saw that the Mao Yang, lying under her sword, was slowly fading away like a piece of paper. The Crown Prince's lips curled into a cold smile. This Mao Yang, in order to escape with his life, did not hesitate to destroy one of his doppelgangers. He was indeed a ruthless person. Even to himself, he could be so ruthless. But in this way, the Crown Prince had spent a lot of money. Although Mao Yang's doppelganger had yet to materialize, it was still in the early stages of materialization. It was possible that it could become a physical doppelganger in the future. But now, because he had to flee for his life, he could only abandon him personally. The old man must be vomiting blood right now. Mo Yin couldn't help but sneer. The old man fled to the center of the array base. Suddenly, he stretched out his arm and smashed it into the array core. Immediately, a violent gust of wind rose, and divine power surged in all directions. It was as if it was going to violently blow this secret realm away. The sand, dust, grass, and trees in front of him all floated up and danced chaotically along with the boundless wind. And Wu Shuang covered her eyes with her hands and squinted. There seemed to be a huge hole in the sky above the secret realm. A stairway to heaven appeared above Elder Zhuang and the others, and they climbed out of the secret realm. Mo Yin's icy gaze locked onto that divine, venerable realm powerhouse. Without saying a word, he took a step in the void and teleported to the side of the crowd. Without hesitation, he stabbed his sword forward. It pierced straight into the old ghost's lower back, causing him to wail like a ghost and howl like a wolf in pain. He waved his sleeve heavily, brushing away Mo Yin's dark moon. His figure immediately disappeared into the stairway talisman. Lin Zhen'er, her sister, Zhao Yi, Gu Yishuan, Gu Yisin, and the remaining disciples of the City of Shadows screamed in terror as they scrambled to follow the stairway talisman. The venerable peach blossom immortal floated and flew to Mo Yin's side extremely quickly. Chapter 45:11. Reaching out to support his arm, the venerable peach blossom immortal couldn't resist growling with a frown. You don't want to live anymore? Mo Yin's figure swayed, and his feet wobbled. If we don't suppress him in time, we'll probably be in trouble. The venerable peach blossom immortal naturally understood this logic. After entering the transcendent God realm, let alone a major realm, even the suppression of a minor realm was practically insurmountable. Mo Yin's realm seemed to be higher than Mao Yang's. But in reality, Mao Yang, that old geezer, wasn't lying at all. Ever since Mo Yin broke the ancient seal, the Crown Prince's cultivation advanced too quickly, and his realm was very superficial. If he was willing to enter seclusion for a year or two, that old geezer naturally wouldn't be his match when he appeared again. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the difference between them was like heaven and earth. But now how could Mo Yin be able to calm down? That old geezer had seen through him earlier, so he could only use speed to suppress him. So he might as well use the Supreme Lotus Seal to smack that old geezer down. Sure enough, his actions scared that old geezer to the point of panic. Only by completely subduing him would he have the thought to immediately escape. If he really fought with that old geezer, the longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. The little stoic ran over with a taut face. She tugged at Mo Yin's sleeve and looked him up and down. Spit it out. She glowered at him with a sullen face. Mo Yin blinked and was about to say spit what out when he felt the little stoic's palm forcefully smack him on the back. He immediately lowered his head and coughed out blood. Arbor's face was taut. He moved extremely quickly and stuck 2 needles into this person's body. Without waiting for him to beg for mercy, he reached out a fair and tender palm and forcefully smacked his lips. The pill in his hand fell into his mouth, and melted in his mouth. The venerable peach blossom immortal's eyes twitched, and he looked sympathetically at Prince Imo. Haha, your wife is going to diss you. Wife, I've already coughed it out. Can you stop poking me with needles? The crown prince said aggrievedly, I didn't do it on purpose, wife. I'll settle accounts with you later. The little stoic's face darkened. She originally wanted to teach this person a lesson. However, the most important thing now was to repair and refine the Fectus secret realm. After all, the Tingy secret realm was broken by that damned old man just now. If it wasn't repaired, the Tingy secret realm would be finished. The power of a hierarch was able to tear open a secret realm. It seemed that only when one reached that height would they know some unknown things. Arbor clenched his fist and summoned the realm of misfortune back. The old man left in a hurry and didn't even bother to snatch the realm of misfortune. Now that this matter was over, she had to think about it carefully. Next time, if he were to meet that stinking old man alone, how would he deal with him? From the looks of it, it was because of her that Mo Lien hadn't gone into seclusion to stabilize her cultivation. How could this go on? She must convince him, roar, to submit, die to him, get lost, and go into seclusion to cultivate. The little stoic's face darkened. She sat down cross-legged and swiftly immersed herself in refining. What kind of joke was this? That old man Fecta's corpse was even inside this secret realm. If the secret realm was destroyed, wouldn't that old man's corpse be completely obliterated? Besides, that old man had left behind so much inheritance for her. No one could bear to let this secret realm shatter and disappear like this. It was all that old geezer Mao Yang's fault. What did he do? He couldn't have it himself, so he didn't want anyone else to have it. That old bastard, he better not let her run into him again. Otherwise. Chapter 45:12. Since she couldn't beat him, she could only summon all her holy beasts to gang up on him. Although she really didn't want to do this, she had no other choice in this critical situation. But what did it matter if she relied on her holy beasts to win? It wasn't like she could defeat others herself. With this thought, her anger towards her husband calmed down a little. She was already such a proud person, let alone her husband who was so proud of his talents. When her husband repeatedly fought with others, he also didn't like to summon seventh yin to help. After all, people who had reached his level all had unparalleled pride. Once he fought with the other party, the earth would shake, the mountains would sway, and cities would crumble. Look, he could even destroy a perfectly fine mystic realm. It was truly indescribable. The little stoic sighed and thought, then I'll forgive him this time. Why did she feel so unbearable when she saw his pitiful appearance just now? Tianji's mystic realm was much larger than Senior Xuanji's mystic realm. In addition, she still had to mend that hole, so it took her a whole half a day to perfectly resolve the problem. After everyone came out of the mystic realm, they vigilantly inspected their surroundings. Arbor and the others breathed a sigh of relief when they didn't sense that old man Mao Yang's aura returning. Hubby, the little stoic finally had time to educate her husband. Prince Imo blinked, looking like he was humbly receiving a lecture. Go on, wife. Hubby is listening. Hubby, next time the situation is critical, can you shout? I'll release Chio and the others. Wouldn't it be easier for everyone to gang up on them? Everyone. Although the little lady in front of them looked soft and adorable, they felt like her released Chio and the others probably wasn't anything good. When Prince Imo discovered that his wife didn't continue to berate him, he was so moved that he kept nodding, obeying the little emperor's decree. Okay, I will definitely remember. And it was you who said that we weren't fighting alone. Is it because I'm weak that you always like to jump out alone at critical moments? It's not. Emolian shook his head vigorously and pulled his wife into his arms. It's because hubby wants to protect you. As long as your husband is here, your husband will always stand in front of you. Prince Imo reached out and cupped his wife's small face. He looked in her eyes seriously and said, Jojo, you're really strong. Your husband admits defeat. The little stoic blushed inexplicably. Was this guy possessed by a love spirit? She originally wanted to scold him, but strangely, The words that were about to come out of her mouth were all blocked back. Everyone was speechless. Why was it so sour? Why did he feel so uncomfortable after being fed dog food for no reason? All right. You talk too much. Ming Yasi, who was trying to break up the couple, said with a dark expression, "Hurry up and take a look. Those loose cultivators and aristocratic family disciples who entered the secret realm should have already come out. I reckon they'll find us soon. Think of an excuse." What excuses? Dianyu rolled his eyes. Everyone entered the secret realm based on their own abilities and came out based on their own abilities. What explanation do we still need to give them? They're here. They're all here. As they spoke, a clamor came from afar. Arbor and the others looked back and saw that it was the other aristocratic family disciples they had met twice before, as well as some mercenaries and loose cultivators. Arbor elbowed and Wushuang beside him. Princess Wushuang instantly turned into a drama queen. Chapter 45:13. This fellow took a few steps forward and sang her praises. "Aya, you're all out too. Is everyone all right? Aya, I was so worried. I thought you all died in this lousy mystic realm." Everyone, her words made everyone want to hit her. What did she mean by they all died in the mystic realm? Although they had a very rough start, their luck wasn't too bad after they parted ways with the little stoic Prince Mo and the others, and they didn't encounter any especially great danger. They even killed a few spirit beasts along the way and obtained several top-grade spirit beast cores. Princess Wushuang said sincerely, "Everyone is fine. Fortunately, everyone is fine. Sai, how are things on your side? Did you get anything? Why do you think we all fell out of the mystic realm? We only went in for a few days, but we were sent out so quickly. What's going on?" Everyone was instantly speechless. They wanted to ask this question, but this fellow beat them to it. Right, they also wanted to ask the little stoic and the others. What the hell was going on? They were still exploring the mystic realm when they suddenly felt like the sky was spinning and the earth was shaking. Then they were all sent back to the deserted island. Madame Mo, could it be that everyone also doesn't know what's going on? The little stoic silently stuffed the Fecta heart back in her sleeve and shook her head, her expression even more sincere. "I don't know." And Wushuang sighed. "Sai, it's really hard on us. What do you think we should do now? We probably can't enter the mystic realm anymore, right? Wasn't that obvious? The mystic realm directly threw them out, and they couldn't even see the entrance. They couldn't even smell a trace of a divine realm opening. So how could they enter, and where could they go? We're really unlucky." Princess Wushuang sighed even more. "We thought we could find one or two fortuitous encounters in the mystic realm, but we didn't find anything after going in. All right, did you find any treasures?" And Wushuang sighed and said, "We were really fooled by that old geezer Hao Guang. Before we came, he promised us again and again that there were treasures everywhere in the mystic realm, and we could see a divine weapon when we stepped on it. In the end, we didn't even find a strand of hair. I originally wanted to find a top-notch crafting cauldron for my big brother. Now that I've returned empty-handed and gained nothing, it's really infuriating." Princess Wushuang's acting skills were so good that people were dumbfounded. If it weren't for the fact that Er Rong and the others had personally witnessed the little stoic, this swindler, pocketing the entire mystic realm, perhaps they really would have believed her nonsense. "How's everyone's harvest?" And Wushuang hurriedly looked curiously at the group of mercenaries and disciples of aristocratic families. "Harvest? Well, just a little bit," a mercenary said naively. "I got a high-grade spirit beast crystal core." Princess Wushuang immediately showed an exaggerated expression. "What? You guys even encountered spirit beasts? We thought there weren't any spirit beasts in this secret realm. Sai, this is too unfair. Why haven't we seen a single one of those spirit beasts? Did you really get a spirit beast core?" Everyone had an awkward expression on their faces. That mercenary said meekly in a low voice, Miss, it's probably because your group is filled with the aura of a strong person. As long as it's not a blind spirit beast, it probably won't approach you guys." Chapter 45:14. "Oh, is that so?" And Wushuang blinked and reluctantly accepted this warrior's explanation. At this time, a person who looked like an aristocratic family elder walked out of the crowd and sized up Arbor's group. His tone contained some doubt. That's impossible, right? You really didn't find anything? These people in the Little Stoics group weren't ordinary cultivators. Judging from this group's cultivation and aura, they were all above them. This group of 9 people were all experts above the divine realm. How could they return empty-handed from Taianjizi's secret realm? They must have collected some good stuff, but pretended not to find anything and kept it for them to play dumb. Hey, isn't this the Sure family's elder? Another person said with a smile and suddenly glanced to the side. They saw a fair-skinned, hedonistic young man retreat a few steps from the Sure family's elder and shrink into the crowd without a word. Hey, isn't this the Sure family's 3rd young master, little young master Sure Jinbao? That person shouted as if he wanted to see the world plunged into chaos. Young master Sure, why are you hiding? Sure Jinbao's neck stiffened, and he shrank back into the crowd reflexively. His fair face was filled with suspicious terror as he muttered, "It's not my fault. It's not my fault. 5th elder courted death himself. You can't blame me." Seeing Arbor's chilly gaze shoot towards him, Sure Jinbao immediately felt like his soul was about to float out of his chest. The feeling of one Buddha ascending to heaven and 2 Buddhas leaving the body was really wonderful. He was so scared that even his legs were trembling. He suddenly yelled at Arbor and repeatedly waved his hands. Don't hit me, don't hit me. I didn't do anything. I didn't say those words either. Crown Princess, Your Highness the Crown Prince, it's 5th elder who courted death himself. You don't like him, just beat him to death. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already rolled from the front to the back. He crawled up on all 4s and dashed madly toward the empty space behind him. However, at this moment, they were all standing at the edge of the beach. The few large ships that had been anchored at the seaside were now gone. Sure Jinbao ran directly from the beach into the sea. He even screamed and wailed as he flopped into the sea. His appearance, as if he had suffered a great blow, caused everyone to be dumbfounded. Everyone's gaze silently gathered on the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. Their eyes revealed traces of horror as they secretly glanced at them. What kind of unforgivable crime had this evil couple committed? Look at how frightened that little young Master Sure was. He jumped straight into the sea and seemed to have gotten sick from the fright. Arbor was baffled. He looked up at Imo Lien, then at Crown Prince Rong, Ming Yasi, and Ding Yun. Who is he? The corners of Wu Shuang's mouth twitched. She still had some impression of Sure Jinbao, the capital's foppish son who used to hang out with the heir of the old Wang family of Giant Pain and the other foppish sons of the capital's aristocratic families. He spent all his time walking birds and playing with dogs, never doing anything serious. He's the little foppish son of the Sure family's 2nd son, Sure Jinbao. Sister-in-law, you should have met him before. He usually hangs out with the son of the Wang family of Giant Pain. Arbor shook his head decisively. I don't know him. He was so ugly. How could Sir Jojo recognize him? Chapter 45:15. This time, it was Wu Shuang's turn to be startled. Lil's sister-in-law said she didn't know Sure Jinbao in a resolute and decisive manner. It was clear that she really didn't have the slightest impression of Sure Jinbao. But judging from Sure Jinbao's appearance, it seemed like he had been greatly provoked by the little Crown Princess. It didn't seem like he hadn't interacted with her before. Arbor glanced at her husband in confusion. What did you do? What did your husband do? The Crown Prince blinked his phoenix eyes innocently at her to express goodwill. I didn't do anything. Then why did he look like he saw a ghost when he saw you just now? Arbor pursed her lips in disdain. You don't look like a decent person with fair skin and fair flesh. Everyone, by this time, that 5th elder of the Sure family had already gone up with a flushed face and brought back young Master Sure Jinbao, who was thrashing about in the sea, with 3 to 5 brawny men in tow. Young Master, young Master. The 5th elder of the Sure family shouted louder and louder. When he saw that Sure Jinbao's eyes were still abnormally terrified as he desperately waved his hands, his voice became a bit shrill. "Let go of me! Let go of me! Crown Princess, spare me! Crown Princess, spare me!" Everyone silently turned to look at the little Crown Princess. The little fellow was instantly enraged. She remembered very clearly that she had never seen this wastrel before. What did he mean by looking like she had harmed him? Did he think that the little Crown Princess had been wronged? When Yin saw her wife rolling up her sleeves and looking like she wanted to go up and kick Shi Jinbao a few times, she couldn't help but raise her hand to cover her forehead. She hastily pulled the bouncing little stoic to her side and stroked her head placatingly. "Wife, ignore him. What's there to pay attention to a lunatic? He won't dirty your feet. Look at his weakling appearance. Why would I let him off? Who wants his lousy life?" The little stoic became angrier as she spoke. "I've long ignored that bunch of smelly bugs from the Shi family. Who is he putting on such an act for today? Who are you trying to malign?" She really did not expect that there would be a little white flower among men. Today, she was going to trample this little white flower to death. Let's see if he still pretended to be a weakling. What was he pretending to be in front of Miss Qiao? And Wu Shuang's lips twitched, and she exchanged a look with third young Master Fu. Why not? Princess Wu Shuang had a strange premonition. She felt that Shi Jinbao, this little pitiful girl, must have been severely frightened by the young crown prince consort in the past. However, the tragedy was that the young crown prince consort had probably completely forgotten a minor character like him. But she didn't torture him back then. She must have tortured this young Master Shi until he went crazy every time he saw the crown princess. His expression would change on the spot. He had to admit that Princess Wu Shuang was right. The extent of young Master Shi's tragic state was really not to be underestimated. He still remembered that in the despondent pavilion, as one of the profligate sons, he didn't fear death and publicly took liberties with the crown princess. In the end, the little crown princess sent him flying into the sky with a fire explosion talisman. It was over, but this was not the end. It was only later that he found out that being blown up by the crown princess might not even be considered a big deal. The most frightening thing was that His Highness the Crown Prince ordered people to pack him up overnight and send him directly to a brothel, making him enjoy the life of a prostitute for 3 months. After he was released, young Master Shi could be said to have been completely crippled. Later on, whenever he saw a slightly stronger woman, he would uncontrollably shudder and scurry away like a rat. How could he still cause trouble for others? Chapter 45:16. One could only imagine how traumatized this incident was for little young Master Shi. Shi Jinbao had already noticed the presence of the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess at the entrance of the Mystic Realm. He had been hiding himself well in the crowd, trying his best not to show his face or make a sound in front of them. Little did he expect that this foolish elder of his would step out of the crowd to argue with the little Crown Princess and her entourage. Treasures or not, they were all worldly possessions. He would not bring them with him when he was born, and he would not bring them with him when he died. Right now, he only wanted to preserve his little life. Little young master, young master. Fifth elder was so angry that he could not care less about seniority. He slapped the back of Shi Jinbao's head to wake him up. Shi Jinbao shuddered from head to toe. When he noticed Crown Prince Mo's oppressive gaze, he seemed to have realized something and retreated a dozen steps. He shouted repeatedly, "I'll scram right now, scram right now. What are you all waiting for? Cut the crap and go back, go back." Shi Jinbao punched the fifth patriarch's shoulder and roared at the few Shi clan disciples. He kicked them into the back of the crowd. Yin held onto Arbor. Otherwise, she would have gone up and kicked this crazy young master a few times. Was he a fucking retard? Sir Jojo did not have the time to bicker with him. Besides, was she that scary? He was so scared by her that he jumped into the sea. What was wrong with him? Second Sect Master. Second Sect Master. Hao Guang's excited voice came from behind. Everyone looked back and saw that old man, scattered light, sprinting toward Xiao Mu while flailing his arms and legs in joy. Just as he was about to pull her arm, Yin, who was standing to the side, blocked him with one arm. The old man was not happy. He glared at Yin and shouted, "Second Sect Master, It's great that you're fine. Your safe return is better than anything else. Second Sect Master. How are you? We're all fine. Those brats are in the Karst cave, meditating and practicing chi every day. What can happen to them? However, not long after you left, many old and weak women and children came to the island. I thought their ragged clothes were rather pitiful to wander about for so many days without a fixed abode, so I let them all stay. Since there are so many people on this deserted island, adding a few more people won't be a big problem. Oh, Arbor mercilessly ended the conversation. Scattered light. What was wrong with the second-generation sect leader? Didn't he spend a lot of effort to say such a long sentence? Why did he just reply with an O? Now that this matter is settled, I plan to settle the soldiers of the 3 prefectures here for the time being. Arbor nodded in satisfaction as he sensed the divine aura coming from all around him. Although this is just a deserted island, I feel that the divine power is quite dense. It's really not bad to use it as a training ground. That's good. There's a large open space behind the snow mountain. When the time comes, they can build houses and tents if they want. Let the group of soldiers make their own nest. Arbor nodded slightly. By the way, those people you mentioned, where are you going to settle them now? Whoosh whoosh. A few air-piercing sounds suddenly passed by. One of the arrows immediately pierced through the arm of an itinerant cultivator, causing half a howl. Emolien turned to look and saw a large number of murlocs crawling out of the sea. It's already 4 o'clock today. I'm having a headache. Chapter 45:17. Arbor's eyes immediately darkened, and his gaze locked onto the large group of mermen that swam ashore. These guys were all dressed in the same uniform. They were all wearing thin black armor woven from merman silk and carrying a long, large bow on their backs. In Arbor's eyes, they were no different from a large group of zombies that crawled ashore. He felt an inexplicable sense of panic. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Arrows continuously shot toward the crowd. The leading merman had brownish-yellow eyes, and his roar shook the sky. Quick, bring them out immediately. Kill anyone who resists. Princess Wushuang frowned. It seems like these mermen aren't here for us. Arbor stared at them coldly. Regardless of why they're here, they can go to hell for daring to shoot arrows at this crown princess. Second faction master, do you want to throw the godly powerballs? Mi Guang suddenly took out a storage bag from his pocket and poured out a dozen godly powerballs, stuffing them all at Arbor. Throw them, second faction master. Everyone. Senior Mi Guang really spared no effort to lead their second faction master down the crooked path of the fiery little stoic. If it doesn't work, we'll drop spirit artifacts. Mi Guang looked at his little faction master expectantly. Don't panic, second faction master. There are too many things that can be dropped. Just drop whatever you want. Arbor glanced at him and stared at him with his pitch-black eyes for a moment. He silently took a handful of godly powerballs that the old man presented. He quickly flicked 3 of them with his fingers, and the godly powerballs flew toward the group of mermen with a whoosh. Get out of the way, the merman leader shouted angrily. The mermaids and mermen instantly scattered in all directions. Some of the more timid ones even jumped into the sea to hide. After a few explosions, the seawater nearby was blasted into pieces of snow by the divine powerball, revealing a few large pits that were neither too deep nor too shallow. Several mermen who didn't have time to dodge were directly blasted into the sea. A merman hiding in the sea just wanted to poke his head out to see what was going on, but he was hit in the face by a body of a merman flying through the air. He immediately closed his eyes and fainted. Xiaomu's pitch-black eyes stared at that merfolk leader as she raised both hands at the same time. The leader of the mermen was so scared that his soul almost flew out of his body. He hurriedly shouted, "Stop! Stop it!" Hao Guang lowered his head and rummaged through the storage bag. To be honest, ever since he was trapped in the Thousand Cave for a few months, Senior Finelight had been obsessed with creating spatial equipment. These storage bags were big and small, and they were all made by him alone. There were many things in them. The great artifact maker, Senior Scattered Light, couldn't help but shed tears of sympathy for him when he thought of his own experience back then. Then, he looked at himself from head to toe. Even in his sleeves, there were several storage bags. It couldn't get any better. There were many necessary items in the storage bag for tricking people. Senior Fine Light decided to take them all out for the little Supreme Leader to use. But the problem was, why did those mermen stop when the second Supreme Leader threw a few godly powerballs over? Didn't the battle just start? Wasn't the tempo a little too fast? What a bunch of cowards. Senior Fine Light couldn't help but twitch his mouth and continue rummaging through the storage bag. Second Supreme Leader, don't argue with them. This guy had been spreading rumors in front of the little Supreme Leader. Chapter 45:18. Who told them to pretend to be big shots in front of us just now? Second Sect Master, continue blasting. Don't be polite with them. This light really wanted to see the world plunged into chaos. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at the old man speechlessly and said in a low voice, "Jojo, why don't we ask them why they're here?" He felt that this group of mermen didn't seem to have come to this deserted island for Jojo. And from the looks of it, these people didn't seem to recognize Jojo at all. You humans, don't be too arrogant. The young merman in the lead had a handsome face and very fair skin. A trace of hatred flashed through his brown-yellow eyes. He comforted himself that he wasn't afraid of this little stoic who threw divine powerballs at the team at the drop of a hat. He just didn't want his team to make unnecessary sacrifices. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. So, what if we're arrogant? What can you do about it? A stinky salted fish was still a salted fish no matter how you flipped it. Xiao Mu's eyes turned extremely sinister in the blink of an eye. When a merman in the lead saw her frosty gaze, he couldn't help but shudder with apprehension. The little girl's aura didn't seem like an ordinary person. I'm Hazza, the commander of the Royal Guard of the Mermen of the Forgotten River Dragon Clan. Who are you humans, and why are you near our sacred land of the Snow Ridge? The sacred land of the Snow Ridge belongs to your family? And Wu Shuang retorted exasperatedly. We come and go as we please. What does it have to do with you? Commander Hazza glanced coldly at Wu Shuang. He gripped the large bow in his hand and said, "If you're guests of the Forgotten River, then please move to the Forgotten River clan's territory and register." Otherwise, Arbor didn't wait for him to finish speaking and threw out several divine powerballs with her left hand. The surrounding itinerant cultivators, mercenaries, and aristocratic family disciples couldn't help but feel heartache. They thought, why don't you let this guy finish speaking first? We have to see if there's a chance to reconcile with them. There's no explanation now, and you're just blindly throwing divine powerballs. These aren't ordinary mystic powerballs. These are priceless divine powerballs. It was such a waste of resources. You simply don't know how to cherish it. Arbor didn't understand why the people around him looked so heartbroken, as if the sky was falling. Wasn't everything fine now? The situation was already under her control. The group of fishmen were repeatedly bombarded by the divine powerballs. They only dared to hide in the sea and did not dare to approach the shore. Why were they panicking? Emolian couldn't help but twitch her mouth. He silently admired the expression on his wife's face. He didn't even need to guess to know what the little fellow was thinking. She must be very speechless, thinking in her heart, "Why are you panicking? I didn't even panic when I turned the tide. You guys are just hiding behind me, enjoying the scenery. What are you guys panicking for?" When that group of fishmen charged forward, this Chow would be in front of them to block them. He had no sense of responsibility at all. Did he even look like a mercenary? Did he even look like a man? You're simply throwing away the face of your parents. If I were your parents, I would use my shoe to whip you useless things to death. A bunch of weaklings, cowards, treasures, you guys are too weak. Arbor said expressionlessly. Such a small scene made you guys look like you're about to collapse. You're not manly at all. The itinerant cultivators and mercenaries were dumbfounded. Chapter 45:19. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal winked mockingly at Prince Mo. Look, my Jojo is making fun of me again. Prince Mo threw him an expressionless emoji. The little stoic simply didn't understand why other people looked like they were about to collapse. The thoughts running through her mind right now were in a completely different world from everyone else's. She thought that other people were panicking and collapsing when they saw so many mermen. Who knew that other people were collapsing from heartache when they saw her throw the divine power balls? What are you panicking for? Arbor's gaze landed on that fat uncle from the Fey mercenary group. Throw a few more divine power balls at them and have them all scram. The members of the Fey mercenary group all revealed expressions of unbearable heartache as they watched the little girl throw away the remaining divine power balls with a wave of her hand. She threw them out so casually, completely not caring whether the divine power balls fell into the sea or caused serious damage to the merman. She simply didn't care whether they hit anyone or not. Even if it was a bag of divine power balls she picked up for free, she couldn't waste it like this. Huzzah turned around in exasperation and looked at the scarlet surging to the surface of the water. Many of the mermen hiding in the sea were injured, and the bottom of the water was also dyed red. You humans, are you really going to stop us from going ashore? You want to become the enemy of our river of forgetfulness? We're already enemies. Arbor coldly interrupted Huzzah with an impatient expression. Scram back and tell your clan leader that I'm expropriating this empty, barren island. Since the River of Forgetfulness Dragon clan dares to trespass on this island, don't blame me for ruthlessly slaughtering you. Huzzah's face flushed red, as though he was very dissatisfied with Arbor's wanton and icy attitude. Who are you? Why are you so hostile to our River of Forgetfulness Merman clan? What a hothead! Arbor glanced at him coldly, and a bough made from twining wooden vines suddenly formed in his hand. A jade-green arrowhead abruptly appeared and coldly aimed at the other party. Huzzah! Huzzah's entire body trembled slightly, and he couldn't understand why a trace of panic would emerge in his heart. Suddenly, he shouted, I am. It was the royal guard, Huzzah. What are you trying to do? You? What's wrong with you? Leader. The mermen who poked their heads out of the water all opened their eyes wide and roared in horror. Why aren't you running? Young Masterding glanced at Huzzah with a faint smile. If you don't run now, you won't have a chance. Huzzah suddenly put down his pride and dignity and plunged into the sea. At the same time, Arbor released a wood spirit arrow, which pierced through the air and shot toward where Huzzah was standing. The arrowhead flew so fast that everyone could only see a dark green afterimage fly past their eyes. In an instant, it fell into the sea with a swoosh sound. Bang! A huge splash of water splashed out as divine power shot out in all directions. A stream of water spirit was smashed into fine powder, splashing onto the fleeing mermaids and mermen. Blood-curdling screams came from all directions. Even though the group of mermen had already applied defensive artifacts on their bodies, they still felt pain all over their bodies from being smashed by the pearl-like water spirit. All the places that were hit by the water splashes were red and swollen at this moment. Little red dots appeared all over his body from the splashes of the water splashes, one after another. It was too fucking painful. Chapter 45:20. The mermen flopped about in the water, calling out to their leader Huzzah. Several timid mermen clutched their heads and scurried away like rats, howling miserably. Arbor put down the wood spirit bough in her hand, dispersing it into bits of divine power before finally gathering it back into her body. The little stoic pursed her lips tightly as she gazed coldly at the scattered mermen in front of her. Useless! Huzzah crawled out of the water with great difficulty and heard the little stoic's extremely emotionless, arrogant, and rude words. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He then looked down at his outer robe that was so tattered it looked like a beggar's outfit, and he was instantly enraged. Look at the good deed this stoic face did. He, the dignified commander of the Wong family's guards, was actually beaten into a drowning dog. This girl was truly indescribable. Commander, I see them. They're the remnants of Long Xinghua's group. A merman suddenly shouted in his ear. His voice was so loud that Huzzah couldn't help but furrow his brows. What were you shouting for? He wasn't blind, so he naturally saw Long Xinghua's group walking toward the beach with a handsome man and a beautiful woman. Xiao Moon naturally saw them as well, and she was momentarily taken aback. She felt that the old mermaid who was walking towards her seemed to have a familiar appearance. Before Arbor could take a closer look, she heard a soft call of "sister." A small figure dashed in front of her and bumped into her arms. Prince Imo swiftly picked up that pitch-black little thing. Resisting the urge to throw it away, he lowered his head to look at the child in his arms. At the age of 8, the child's original appearance couldn't be discerned from his pitch-black little face. Only his eyes were very bright. When he looked at him, his eyes were still glaring fiercely, as if he was very dissatisfied. This uncle, who had jumped out of nowhere, actually picked him up. "Go away, go away!" The child kicked his 2 short legs and struggled with all his might before opening his arms in Arbor's direction. "Sister, sister." Arbor's brain, which had been disconnected from time to time, seemed perfectly normal now. She remembered. Weren't these people in front of her the members of the Dragon Clan's side branch that she had met once in Seacone Planet's 5 Moon City a few years ago? Granny Long Xinghua and her granddaughter Long Xianxian. Back then, she had just walked out of her seclusion, left the Holy Water Sect, and went down the mountain to 5 Moon City. Coincidentally, 5 Moon City's Great Migration happened. Then, he encountered Yung He's dog slave, who used his power to bully others and captured a group of merfolk. She was attracted by Long Xianxian's eyes and couldn't help but lend a hand. She, who rarely meddled in other people's business, had always been very puzzled as to why she always wanted to meddle in other people's business. But it turned out that everything was intertwined. Back then, when she saw the holy water for the first time, it was attracted to the mermaid pearl in her body. As for Long Xianxian, this little girl, she had always felt that she was very close to her. For no reason, she wanted to get close to her. She was probably attracted by the 10,000-year mermaid pearl in her body. Arbor lowered her eyes, her expression almost cold. She had already fallen out with the merfolk, so she didn't know how she should face them. "Sister." The little girl Long Xianxian was about to cry. Why did little sister's expression become so cold after not seeing her for only 2 to 3 years? Did she completely forget about them? The author was too busy these past 2 days. He would probably return to normal tomorrow. Chapter 45-21. Arbor silently glanced at her husband, using her eyes to signal for him to put down Long Xianxian. "Sister." Long Xianxian's feet touched the ground, and she immediately bounced in front of Arbor. She suddenly lowered her head to look at her clothes, which were so dirty that their original color could not be discerned. The little girl's face was flushed with embarrassment, and she could not help but hesitate and stop in her tracks. Arbor glanced at her. "You guys?" She had wanted to ask why they were here, but felt that her question might not be too abrupt. Thinking about it, she was being too nosy. Since she could come here, why couldn't they come to this deserted island in the River of Forgetfulness when they were originally from the Dragon Clan's collateral branch? So she did not continue the conversation and only glanced at Long Xianxian. At this time, Granny Long was leaning on a very old crutch. Her body was trembling as she walked forward. She bowed to Arbor. "I did not expect to see my little benefactor here. This old one greets you." Arbor shook her head. "Small things in the past are not worth mentioning. Granny, you are too polite. No need for formalities." A sincere smile appeared on Long Xinghua's wrinkled old face. "Little benefactor, you are too modest." Arbor turned to look at Hazza and the others in the sea, and her gaze once again fell on Long Xinghua's group. She asked hesitantly, "They are here to find you?" So the commander of the Long family's guards really was not here to find trouble with her, Arbor. A trace of anger flashed across Long Xinghua's eyes, and she nodded heavily. "We have caused trouble for our little benefactor again." Arbor shook her head slightly. "It's no trouble. They're just some flies. I can just swat them to death." Everyone, she was naturally like this. If others spoke to her politely, she would naturally be polite. If they were to jump up and down at her from the start, her attitude would be 10,000 times worse. At this moment, Hazza had already climbed out of the sea with his men and water droplets hung on his mermaid silk leather armor. Huzzah! And the others looked furious. Sirs, do you insist on meddling in this matter today? Arbor glanced at them coldly and retorted without thinking. If you're blind, then go find someone to treat you. Wasn't this obvious? Arbor was determined to take care of Granny Dragon's branch. Could it be that she was afraid of this bunch of bastards in front of her? Huzzah clenched his fists and roared. These people were exiled to the lower star domain by our forgotten River Dragon clan. Now, they actually dared to sneak back into the River of Forgetfulness. They're going against the will of our clan leader. Go back and tell Long Qian that Granny Long's team will be staying with us on this deserted island. We have the final say on when to leave. Arbor coldly interrupted Huzzah's words with an indifferent expression. Also, tell her not to provoke me. My patience with the forgotten River Dragon clan has run out. If you want to die, then come. Don't expect me to show you any mercy. Benevolence? Huzzah glared at the little stoic girl in front of him as if he had heard a joke. How was she benevolent? There were so many guards in the Wong family. A large number of them were injured, and a large number of them had fallen. Now, every one of them was more or less injured. Was this still considered benevolent? Are you sure you're not joking? Huzzah glared at Arbor for a few seconds with a furious expression. After a while, he said, "Just you wait." Chapter 45:22. Arbor raised his leg and kicked Huzzah's right leg. The latter staggered a few steps forward and almost fell into the sea again. Huzzah stumbled to the shore and didn't dare to look back. He only let out a whistle and led the Wong family's guards into the sea, battered and exhausted, to escape for their lives. Seeing their cowardly appearance, Rome and the others couldn't help but snicker. This was really a heroic wind blowing, and they were scrambling to escape. Arbor turned to look at Granny Long and the others. "Granny, I have something to ask you. Can we talk in private?" "Little benefactor, you're too polite. Ask whatever you want. This old one will tell you everything she knows." My Chow's section break. "Greetings, madam." A young man came out and bowed to Mu Qingya. Mu Qingya nodded slightly, with a cold expression. She tugged at the brocade, cloak on her arm, and glanced at the man. "I heard that Medicine Master Zheng used to be a clerk at Li City's rejuvenation medicine shop?" "Yes." Zheng Zhengyang nodded and took a few steps back with his head lowered. "How's my daughter now? I've already treated Mrs. wound with medicine. But Mrs. injury is a bit serious, and she needs some time to recuperate," Zheng Zhengyang said in a low voice. Mu Qingya glanced at him again and said, "Now you know who you're following." Zheng Zhengyang looked indifferent and said in a low voice, "There are some things that I don't need to know too clearly. I only know that Miss gave me a chance to improve myself. Miss is my master who gave me a new lease on life." Mu Qingya nodded with satisfaction. "Okay, I understand. You can leave first." Zheng Zhengyang didn't object and immediately left. Mu Qingya lifted the bed curtain and walked over to see her daughter half lying on the bed. She was holding a porcelain cup and looking at her with a smile. Mu Qingya's heart softened inexplicably. She walked to her daughter's bedside and sat down. She sighed and said, "You're too bold. Didn't I tell you not to provoke that person?" "Mother, you should be relieved now. I have a good eye for people." Mu Xiaoxue looked at her mother with a smile. "Zheng Zhengyang is not a famous doctor, but given time, he will definitely become my right-hand man. He is indeed a good young man." Mu Qingya praised and held her daughter's soft hand. "My daughter, you're too careless this time. I've already warned you that the Crown Prince Consort isn't an easy person to get along with. If you bump into her, just stay far away from her. Why do you have to go up and provoke her again and again?" The smile on Mu Xiaoxue's face faded bit by bit, and there seemed to be ice shards dancing in her dark eyes. She suddenly slammed her fist on the bed. "Why should I hide from her? She just wanted to find out what kind of person her mother kept talking about and praising was like. Who would have thought that she would be forced into such a situation?" He recalled how he was like a masterless dog in that mystic realm, chased and beaten relentlessly by that ferocious, expressionless man, as if he was a dog driven into a dead end. Mu Xiaoxue couldn't hold back her anger and trembled in agitation. "Mother, mother." Chapter 45:23. Say, how can a person be so evil? Mu Xiaoxue clenched her fists and said coldly, how did I offend her? Why did she treat me like this? Mother, you don't know this, but in the mystic realm, she kept activating the teleportation talisman array and chased after us to beat us up. Speaking of this, Mu Xiaoxue could not help but shudder. She wanted to kill my mother. How can a person's hatred be so strange and sudden? The stoic face's terrifying intuition was too damn accurate. Why did she feel that she was related to Mu Qingya? There were very few people in the world who knew about the kinship between her and her mother. Why? Why could that damned woman see through her so easily? Why did she have to say that she was similar to her mother? Mu Xiaoxue felt a cold wind seep into her pores, and she shuddered for no reason. Mother has fought with her no less than 10 times. Mu Qingya said indifferently. She's already very familiar with Mother's tricks. It's nothing strange that she could recognize you at a glance. After all, you're my biological daughter. How can there not be any similarities between mother and daughter? Mu Qingya smiled and raised her hand to stroke her daughter's loose hair. Xiaoxue, your biggest mistake is that you shouldn't have taken the initiative to provoke her. Before you have absolute strength to crush the other party, you can find a shortcut. You can find another shortcut. For example, if you can secretly befriend her, you can give her a heavy blow at an unusual time in the future. Presumably, the effect would be better than falling out with her openly now. I didn't take the initiative to provoke her at all. Mu Qingya couldn't help but feel indignant when she thought of this. I just happened to want to test her a little. Who knew? Who knew that this woman was like a mad dog, biting whoever she caught? She simply hated this woman to death. She made her realize that under the absolute suppression of strength, she was as insignificant as a speck of dust in front of that person. Even if she died, she wouldn't be able to shake the world in the slightest. How could she be so insignificant and not have the slightest ability to retaliate? Mother, I want to become stronger. I don't want to be like this anymore, Mu Xiaoxue said angrily as she slammed the cotton cushion beneath her. Xiaoxue, what are you talking about? Mother, I know. You have a way to make me stronger. As soon as Mu Xiaoxue said this, Mu Qingya's face turned pale. Didn't I tell you not to mention this again? Mu Qingya's gentle expression changed, and she reprimanded him sternly. Why won't you listen to your mother? Mother. Mu Xiaoxue gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. But I've had enough. I've had enough of being suppressed all the time. I'm not a stupid person. I just don't have enough talent. If I had talent like Xiao Mu's, I could have become a very outstanding cultivator long ago. Maybe they've already surpassed Arbor by now. Mu Qingya's body stiffened and her face turned pale. Xiaoxue, are you blaming your mother for not giving you a better innate condition than others? Mu Xiaoxue immediately realized that she had said something wrong. She quickly grabbed her mother's hand and whispered, Mother, that's not what I meant. Don't think too much. Chapter 45:24. Mu Qingya couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Indeed, I'm useless. If I could unlock my mystic meridians and have the talent for cultivation, you wouldn't be like me now and become an ordinary person. Mother, I really don't blame you. How can you say something like that? Mu Xiaoxue lowered her head and muttered softly. It makes me feel bad. Mother, don't we, Tianyun, come here to break all the laws of heaven and earth and break the rules of the world? Mu Xiaoxue's eyes lit up again. She held her mother's hand tightly and said, Mother, I know you have a way to make us stronger. Why don't you? Mu Qingya suddenly covered her daughter's mouth and said, I said, don't mention this again. Mother, I want to take the mutation pill. Mu Qingya pushed her daughter with trembling hands and said sternly, I said, don't mention this again. The first time her daughter said she wanted to take the mutation pill was more than 2 years ago. Mother and daughter rarely saw each other. 2 years ago, when her daughter saw her, she threw herself into her arms and cried. She must have suffered a lot in the City of Shadows. But thinking about it, the wife of the first city lord of the City of Shadows was not easy to deal with. That woman had given birth to a pair of children, so she must have never given Xiao Shui a good look. She was probably still bullying her in the dark. Therefore, Mu Xiaoxue had always wanted to become stronger. Every time he was ruthlessly crushed by someone, the desire to become stronger and crush them in reverse would grow rapidly in the wilderness in his heart like wild grass that could not be stopped at all. Mu Qingyan knew her daughter too well. She was stubborn and competitive by nature and refused to admit defeat, even if she had been an ordinary person since birth. However, she never seemed to have the intention to stop cultivating. For so many years, no matter what method it was, even if it was unorthodox, as long as there was a chance for her to cultivate, she would secretly try it at least once. Mu Xiaoxue had always believed in her intuition. She was not stupid. She was a smart person and would not lose to anyone. Mother. Mu Xiaoxue wanted to persuade her mother again, but when she looked up, she saw that Mu Qingya had turned her head away with tears in her eyes. Mu Xiaoxue was stunned. Then, she gently tugged at her mother's wrist. Mother, I won't mention it again. Don't be sad. Taking the path of his mother was definitely not going to work. Could it be that the mutation pill had some side effects on the body, and that was why her mother was trying so hard to stop her from taking it? But if he didn't give it a try, how would he know if he would succeed? Outside the door, Mu Roxuan didn't know how long she had been standing there. The ship had always been anchored near the river of forgetfulness. 2 days ago, their mother suddenly visited and boarded the ship. Both he and Hong Chong felt very surprised. However, Mu Roxuan had long known that this was to be expected. Since his mother wanted to capture Arbor alive, it meant that she had other plans for Arbor. She wanted to capture him alive, not dead. This meant that her mother had a plan for Arbor, and Arbor was a target that could not be missed. Based on their current connections, it was impossible for them to do so. Therefore, Mu Roxuan was not surprised that Mu Qingya would come to take charge of the situation. But Chapter 45:25. She didn't expect that her sister, who was said to have died young, was still alive and well. The two of them were in the room, and their conversation was heard by Mu Roxuan. That's right, this is the true affection between mother and daughter, the deep affection between mother and daughter. Mu Roxuan's footsteps were a little weak as she stumbled back to her cabin and closed the door. She sat by the bed in a daze for a long time before suddenly reaching out to touch her cold face. Even she couldn't help but be shocked by this touch. Unknowingly, her face was covered in tears, and she didn't even know it. Compared to Mu Xiaoxue, Mu Roxuan's heart couldn't help but turn cold. Originally, she had always thought that it was because her mother's personality had always been cold, which was why she was so indifferent to her. Later, her mother took out a mutation pill with a cold face and let her swallow it. They were both this woman's children, but why was there such a difference in treatment? Mu Roxuan couldn't figure it out. Her expression was a little painful as she pressed her head down. Why was it like this? Why? How was she different from Mu Xiaoxue? Was it because Mu Xiaoxue was raised in the City of Shadows and became the young miss of the City of Shadows? Her mother looked at Mu Xiaoxue with eyes that contained something that she, Mu Roxuan, had yearned for a long time but had never obtained. A mother's kindness. On the deserted island, Arbor stepped on a thick layer of snow and walked with Granny Long for a while before stopping. Who brought you here? Long Xinghua couldn't help but be startled, and then she understood Arbor's question. Without an excellent space aircraft, very few people can cross the Starfield Sea when entering the Divine Continent. Countless people were lost in the sea of stars and never returned. Little benefactor, don't worry. Our branch of the Long family will definitely not repay kindness with enmity and betray you. Long Xinghua quickly expressed her position. Indeed, there was a mysterious person who gave us a ride. Long Xinghua frowned and said, although this old one doesn't know who the other party is, I don't think there's anything worth coveting on us poor people. Arbor glanced at her, but didn't say anything. Long Xinghua smiled bitterly. If you don't trust us, then we can leave. We can leave. Arbor waved at her. There's no need for that. I'm just asking casually. Granny, you don't have to take it to heart, Arbor said indifferently. Long Xinghua sighed and revealed a bitter smile. Back then, we were exiled to the lower star field to live. However, survival was not easy, and life in the lower star domain was becoming increasingly difficult. By chance, we finally had the chance to sneak back and take a look. Who would have thought that even though they had returned, the clansmen wouldn't accept our branch family? We secretly returned to the River of Forgetfulness. We wanted to bring our children and grandchildren to see our homeland from afar. It was only because he missed his hometown too much. Xiaomu suddenly opened her mouth, and a round, lustrous white shark pearl abruptly leaped into the air. Dense water energy spread out, and Granny Long's eyes widened in an instant. She hurriedly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the mermaid pearl. Great Earth God, this is the mermaid pearl. This is a 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl. Now you should understand. Back then, when you looked at me, you always felt a sense of familiarity. It was because of the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl. Now, please tell me, what use does the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl have for you? Wake up and catch up on the latest chapters. Chapter 45-26. To be more precise, she was wondering what this millennium-old mermaid pearl could do to the merman. After thinking about it, she knew that it would definitely be useful. Otherwise, Long Qian wouldn't have insisted on giving it to her. For this pearl, Long Qian was willing to do anything to shed all pretense of cordiality with her. She was even willing to throw away her identity as her grandmother. What else was there that she couldn't throw away? Xiao Mu was well aware that to her, Long Qian was merely a clan leader of the Merfolk clan. Long Qian could be cold-blooded and serious when dealing with anyone, but she would never hold her granddaughter's hand and become her kind grandmother with a smile on her face. What I don't understand is why she wants this pearl so badly. Arbor said calmly, I have a feeling that she isn't like Bai Ning Shuang, who is doing this out of selfishness. You are an elder of the mermen. Granny, do you know the reason? Long Xinghua nodded. I know. Little benefactor, you might not know that the millennium-old mermaid pearl is something that is hard to come by. Now, it would be an exaggeration to say that only 1 in 10,000 mermen is able to produce a mermaid pearl. Most of the mermen wouldn't be able to produce a mermaid pearl that is more than 1,000 years old. After all, there is a limit to their lifespan. Arbor nodded and looked at the elder in front of her. She was no longer young. In fact, compared to 2 years ago, she was much older. Everyone would grow old, including these mermen. Time was generally fair to any race. Arbor lowered her eyes and said softly, So, this millennium-old mermaid pearl, it was passed down from the ancient times. It was nurtured and maintained by many generations of merman ancestors. It is the origin of the merman, and it is also known as the origin pearl. It had such an extraordinary origin. No wonder Long Qian and the others were so passionate when they saw this millennium-old mermaid pearl. Arbor swallowed the pearl and looked at the elder calmly, waiting for her to continue. The baptism of the mermaid pearl is extremely powerful. Not only will our clansmen who have been baptized by the mermaid pearls gain the power to transform freely, all mermen who have been bathed in the light of the mermaid pearls will reach a new level in their cultivation. In other words, it can at least guarantee the advancement of a major realm. All? Long Xinghua nodded. Yes, everything. You've been with the merfolk for so long. You should have noticed. The mermen of this generation can be said to be almost useless in water when they are in human form. They can only roam freely in the sea after transforming into their merman form. This only means one thing. The power of the Jiao Pearl's baptism is already starting to fade. They need to bathe in the light of the mermaid pearl again. If the baptism is not carried out in time, it will be extremely detrimental to the future development of the merfolk race. It might even affect the growth of the next generation. For example, newborn mermaids might not be able to transform into human form. Or perhaps the talent of each generation will decline, and each generation will be worse than the last. Under such circumstances, the merfolk race has no future. The patriarch will naturally be anxious. Can the seal on the mermaid pearl only be completely unsealed when I'm 16 years old? Arbor asked coldly. She thought that she should know the reason now. Why did Long Qian, who had not cared about her for so many years, suddenly want her to return to the river of forgetfulness? Chapter 45:27. Long Xinghua was stunned and shook her head. I can't be sure about that. I have never heard of the mermaid pearl being sealed in a person's body, and it takes 16 years to open. Furthermore, the woman looked at Arbor with hesitation. The battle at the River of Forgetfulness caused the mermen to suffer heavy losses. The young master, Long Qiu, was severely injured. The mermen have been hiding in the River of Forgetfulness for 10 years. Perhaps the patriarch didn't forget about our little benefactor. Do you believe it? Huh? Granny Long was stunned. Xiao Mu gazed at Long Xinghua gravely. Do you believe your own explanation? I didn't know that our little benefactor had a relationship with the dragon family of forgetfulness. Long Chuyun is my mother. Long Xinghua was completely shocked. Her eyes widened, and her hands trembled as she held onto her cane. You are? The daughter of the young mistress? The daughter of the young mistress of the dragon family of forgetfulness was exiled to the lower star field. What was the reason? What is going on? Long Xinghua held onto her cane and took a few shaky steps forward. Little benefactor, I fought my way out of the river of forgetfulness and fell out with the patriarch of the mermen, Arbor said with a cold gaze. But if our little benefactor is the daughter of the young mistress, then shouldn't the patriarch be your grandfather? Arbor slowly walked towards a protruding rock. With a light tap, he floated up. Perhaps it's not that the seal can only be opened after 16 years. Perhaps the dragon family of forgetfulness has a special method to detect the movement of the pearl. Long Xinghua couldn't keep up with the young lady's thoughts, but she nodded subconsciously. That's possible. As the seal of the mermaid's pearl slowly loosened in my body, Long Qian must have noticed it. That's why she was so anxious to summon me back to the river of forgetfulness. The mermaid pearl can only be taken out of my body after the seal is broken. From the very beginning, all these people wanted was this 10,000-year-old shark pearl. Mu Qingyao was the same. Arbor did not know where Mu Qingyao got this information from. To think that Mu Qingyao guessed that the 10,000-year-old Jiao pearl was in her body in her previous life. The funniest thing in the world was that in her previous life, she didn't even understand what was going on until she died. In Xiao Chen's previous life, the seal on this 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl had not been completely broken. That was why the forgetful River Dragon clan had never looked for her even after her death. This was because Long Qian didn't sense the aura of the mermaid pearl being unsealed until the day she died in her previous life. At that time, she was simply too insignificant. Her existence was so weak that no one would notice it. Her grandmother had never appeared by her side from the beginning to the end. Was it because he was weak? Therefore, there was no need to bring it back. She felt that her speculation this time should be the complete truth. Perhaps it was because the mermaid pearl was useless before the seal was broken that Mu Qingyao locked it up. He wanted to help her by studying her conscious in order to further understand the secrets hidden in her body. He would lock her up and control her life. When the time came, he would be able to cut her open without any hindrance. Arbor suddenly smiled. She suddenly realized that perhaps from her previous life until now, her grandmother's family had never thought of looking for her. Chapter 45:28. Long Xinghua looked back at Arbor and suddenly said, Little miss, maybe you misunderstood. The clan leader she definitely doesn't know. If she knew that you had the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl in your body, she would definitely go to the lower star region to find you and bring you back. Long Xinghua suddenly didn't know what to say to comfort her. She felt like she was saying that the clan leader would definitely bring you back to the river of forgetfulness for the sake of the mermaid pearl. You're right. She doesn't know at all. Maybe she doesn't even want to know about my existence. She recently sensed that the mermaid pearl's power was about to break through the seal, so she sent someone to contact me. If I was like before, a pitiful little girl who was at the mercy of others, then I wouldn't receive any pity or attention from her in this life. The most interesting thing is that I really died in my previous life. I died without a corpse, and I didn't even know about my background. No, no. Long Xinghua stuttered and still wanted to comfort her. You're the clan leader's granddaughter after all. If she knew that you were in the lower star region, of course she doesn't know. Arbor interrupted Long Xinghua's words. Because the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl in my body was sealed by my mother. From the beginning to the end, the Dragon Clan leader only had her eyes on the mermaid pearl. She didn't care about my life or death. She also didn't care about my mother's life or death. So when she received the news of my mother's death back then, she probably only said, "Oh, dead? Haha, what a rebellious daughter." She didn't even want to hand over the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl before she died. She even gave me such a headache after she died. Guess how many people she sent out to find a mermaid pearl's whereabouts after so many years? Arbor suddenly laughed maniacally. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny? My mother and I combined can't even compare to one 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl. Little Mississippi. Long Xinghua's eyes reddened as she trembled and took a few steps forward. Before this, I still had a little hope. After this, there's nothing. I don't know how my mother felt when she sealed the 10,000-year-old shark pearl in my body. I don't know how she felt, waiting for death in that secret realm all by herself. But you know what? Every time I think of this, my heart aches unbearably and my tears wet my face. This is the 10,000-year shark pearl. It's a memento that my mother left me. Qiao Mu turned to look at Long Xinghua and said softly, "I won't return it. If they want to snatch it, I'd rather destroy it than give it to them. It doesn't matter who comes." The little stoic gnashed her teeth and glared at Long Xinghua icily. "Mother-in-law, don't disappoint me." Long Xinghua suddenly knelt down and kowtowed twice. "I don't dare to deceive little Mississippi. I really don't know who the mysterious man is, but I can vaguely guess that it should be someone from Tianyun's side. The mysterious man used us as bait and deliberately sent us to the deserted island to approach you. But don't worry. From the very beginning, this old one had never thought of harming little Mississippi. After drifting outside for a long time, I especially want to return to the place where I grew up when I think about how I'm not far from death. I've already reached the end of my lifespan. It's already a great blessing to be able to see little Miss before I die." Long Xinghua kowtowed again. When she raised her head, her eyes were resolute. Chapter 45:29. This old one was right to conceal the truth before. This is disloyalty to my benefactor and injustice to little Mississippi. This old one asked for the death penalty. I hope little Miss will grant my wish. After saying this, she moved her fingers and a steel spike appeared in her palm. She resolutely stabbed it toward her chest. Arbor had been staring at her for a long time. When he saw her move, he waved his hand and heavily swatted away that steel spike. "I don't need you to die. It's fine as long as you speak the truth." Arbor looked at her coldly. "Not only can you not die, you also have to help me do something." Long Xinghua stared at him, spellbound. For a split second, it was as if she saw that woman in red with crisp laughter. "If all Seers people come to find you, continue to feign civility with them." She wanted to follow the clues and beat them to death, this bunch of stinky gutter rats. The poison in you and Xianxian's bodies isn't hard to cure. It just needs a certain amount of time. Do you understand what I mean? Long Xinghua instantly widened her eyes. So, the little stoic actually clearly knew that they might be under someone's control and that there was something wrong with them. So her probing inquiry earlier wasn't a test at all. She really suspected, "I like honest people." The little stoic threw down this sentence coldly before turning around to walk in the direction of Imo, Lien, and the others. Crown Prince Imo couldn't restrain himself from running over to find his wife several times. Everyone had exceptional hearing. Even though they were far away, they had already heard the little stoic and Long Xinghua's conversation clearly. However, because the two were discussing the Long clan's private affairs, they didn't feel it was appropriate to disturb them. Seeing the little stoic running over by herself, Prince Imo hastily went up to her and pulled her into his embrace. He lowered his head to look at the little fellow's face and said with a frown, "Jojo is crying." "Who's crying?" The little stoic cast him a stubborn glance with a taut face. "No." Prince Imo was silent for a moment before suddenly lowering his head to kiss her forehead. "All right, no. Jojo, you must be tired after a long day." He winked at her. "Let's find a place to rest first. We'll talk about it tomorrow." Arbor nodded knowingly. The venerable peach blossom immortal hurriedly ran after the two of them. What kind of joke was this? Jojo and Emolien were definitely trying to sneak back to the galaxy to wash up and rest. If he didn't run with them now, when would he? Was he really going to be a savage on this deserted island? The three of them ran to the snow region at the back of the mountain. They randomly found a cold cave and ran in. The little stoic set up a formation at the cave entrance and also set up an illusion talisman matrix to fool people. She then turned around and pulled Emolien and the venerable peach blossom immortal back to the star domain. The venerable peach blossom immortal happily hugged the jug of wine and ran to the forest planet to find a hot spring to soak in. Arbor pulled Emolien back to the longevity temple on the main planet. They flew directly to the bedchamber on the top floor. Prince Imo scooped up his wifey, kicked open the door, and kissed her. Sir Jojo extended a fist and smacked the back of his head without holding back. "Bath, it hurts." Prince Imo rubbed against her head and hugged her before plunging into the spacious bathtub behind them. The sound of splashing water followed, and he could faintly hear the little stoic's unhappy mumbling. "Jojo, what are you mumbling about? You said before that husband and wife should pay particular attention to the way of yin and yang harmony." Chapter 45:30. But no buts. "Ha, what you said, could it be you still want to nigh it?" He crawled out of the water and pressed her against the edge of the pool with a grin. He propped up his chin with one hand, and his slender body pressed close to hers. Sir Jojo reflexively shifted her head back, and her beady black eyes roamed around restlessly. Her gaze landed on his face that was so close to hers, and her almond-shaped eyes couldn't help but brighten. Hubby's appearance was seriously really unbearable to look at. She saw him pursing his lips slightly, his phoenix eyes glinting, and his half-wet long hair hanging loose and sticking to his cheeks. Hers. The little stoic suddenly stretched out her small paws, and her soft body also pressed against him. She clung to his body and rubbed against him. Emolien chuckled deeply and wrapped his arms around her slender waist. He whispered into her ear, "Jojo, today, everything is completely different from the past. Remember," he softly rubbed against her neck, "no matter where you go, I will always be with you. Don't worry, and don't be afraid. In the future, you won't be alone anymore." Chiao Mu hugged his neck in return, and she felt her eyes brimming with an unbearable sourness. "Immerse." She nodded lightly and snuggled into his warm embrace. At this moment, she felt that time was tranquil and beautiful. The palace's warm fragrance intoxicated her, and her heart was indescribably calm. "Mother, I want to go see Senior Brother and the others." Mu Xiaoxu gently lowered her eyes. Her white robes made her figure appear even thinner, like a willow branch swaying in the wind. Mu Qingyao looked at her daughter and nodded with a smile. "That's fine. Go persuade them." "Hall Master." He opened the cabin door and quickly entered. She bowed. "Hall Master Gong, Vice Hall Master Meng, and the others have all arrived. Quickly invite them in." Mu Qingya smiled gently and turned to look at her daughter. "Xiaoxue, you go first." "Yes, mother." Mu Xiaoxue nodded slightly and turned to follow He out. When she came out of the cabin and walked to the deck, she saw a group of 10 men walking slowly towards her. Some were flirtatious, some were elegant, some were cold, and some were lazy. These 10 people had beautiful eyes and could be said to be peerless in their generation. Each of them had their own merits. Mu Xiaoxue was stunned for a moment, and her footsteps paused. These people were actually all from the heavenly fate? Mu Xiaoxua brushed past the 10 people and couldn't help but turn back to take another look. One of the men, who was dressed in red, suddenly turned his head and winked at her, as if he was shooting electricity at her. Mu Xiaoxua shuddered and felt that her legs were weak. Hong Chong, who was following behind her, quickly reached out to help her up. "Miss? No, I'm fine." Mu Xiaoxua knew that she had been tricked. She blushed and left in a hurry. A chuckle came from behind, followed by a man's clear voice. "Red, don't use your charm on people casually." Okay, I just wanted to try and see if my charm didn't work. It turns out that it doesn't. It just varies from person to person." A gentle voice with a hint of playfulness slowly rose. "Oofed. How many people do you think there are in this world who don't know how to flirt? Yes, it's so annoying." Chapter 45:31. Hong Chong turned back and glared at them angrily. Who led them to Mu Qingya, also slowly turned back and said lightly, "Please don't go too far. Miss Mu is the daughter of our hall master." Okay, I'm just kidding." The man in red waved his hand with a smile and said lightly, "Don't be so serious." He's face was sullen. She silently frowned and led them to the cabin. Standing at the door of the cabin, he stopped. "Please, the hall master is waiting for you inside." Gong Song Feng's pitch-black eyes glanced at the woman indifferently. Without saying a word, he walked into the cabin. The beautiful man in red giggled. Then his silhouette flashed, and he took a step forward to squeeze in. "Hall Master Mu, do you have any good countermeasures? Your ship has been docked in the River of Forgetfulness for almost half a month, right? Where's the entrance to the River of Forgetfulness?" "The entrance to the River of Forgetfulness is far away, but close at hand," Mu Qingya said softly and raised her hand to wave her sleeve. "Serve the tea." "Oh." The man in red casually picked a seat and sat down. He blinked innocently. "So, the entrance to the River of Forgetfulness is under the deep sea? You've been staying at someone else's door for so long. Hasn't anyone come to find you?" Mu Qingya smiled. The leader of the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness seems to be very patient. He really hasn't come to find me. "Hall Master Gong, I wonder why so many brothers of the Underground Hall have come to visit. I heard that you want to catch her alive?" Gong Song Feng gently raised his hand and pushed away the teacup handed to him by the maid. "Everyone knows what you've boasted about in the organization. If this news spreads out, how do you think that person from the Divine Land will deal with you? If they want to deal with me, of course, they have to find me first." Mu Qingya smiled and fiddled with her slender fingers. "Is Hall Master Gong's trip for this?" "Yes." "Did the people of the Hidden Moon Hall come to find you before?" Mu Qingya shrugged. "This I don't know. This Hall Master has only arrived a few days earlier than all of you. Everything that happened before was handled by my subordinates. Did they offend you in any way? That's really I hope you can forgive me. However, the ignorant are not guilty. I believe that Hall Master Gong will not bicker with them, right?" Gong Song Feng stared coldly at the woman in front of him. What's the matter with the Hidden Moon Hall's not wild? Who allowed him to act alone? Who gave him the guts to run off alone to alert the enemy and catch them? Who can he possibly catch? Has the Hidden Moon Hall's Vice Hall Master been here? Oh, wait a moment. Mu Qingya pretended to turn her head and said to her, "Go and invite eldest Miss over." "Yes." "Who are those people?" Mu Xiaoxua stood by the railing and heaved a sigh of relief. Her wildly beating heart finally calmed down. Her little face was still slightly red at this moment. That red-clothed man's charming technique was too seductive. Just a slight glance and a chuckle could make people's legs go soft. Hong Chong said in a deep voice, "They should be the elites of the Underground Hall's Hall Master Gong." "I've never heard Mother mention it before." Mu Xiaoxua said softly, "In our sect, there are the flying sky, burrowing, earth-picking stars, hidden moon, chasing sun, and 6 branches of the Charm Hall." Chapter 45:32. We don't usually interact with each other. At most, we'll go out on missions and cooperate with each other occasionally. Hong Chong said in a deep voice, The 6 hall masters all work for their own masters and are always divided at heart. It's not like Miss doesn't know this. That's true. Mu Xiaoxue sighed softly. I wonder what Mother is talking about with them. Should we ask Elder Zhuang to go over and take a look? Don't worry, Miss. We have people secretly protecting the hall masters. Although the underground hall doesn't get along with us, they won't make a move here. If they make a move in the open, they'll be punished according to the sect rules. That's true. Mu Xiaoxue nodded softly and turned around slowly, her gaze slightly focused. They saw a woman in a green dress walk past them. She didn't look at them, and her footsteps didn't stop. Elder sister. Mu Xiaoxue followed 2 steps forward and slightly bent her knees to give Mu Rochuan a standard greeting. Mu Rochuan's body stiffened slightly, and her footsteps also paused. She didn't turn around and only lightly nodded with her back facing Mu Xiaoxue. Seeing that she didn't turn around and was about to leave, Mu Xiaoxue hurriedly followed a few steps forward and said softly, Elder sister, are you going to Mother's place? The underground hall master, vice hall master, and several other guests are at Mother's place. I'm afraid it won't be that convenient. Mu Rochuan's voice was calm and flat. Mother is calling me over. Excuse me. Hong Chong, does elder sister not like me? Even after walking far away, Mu Rochuan could still hear Mu Xiaoxue's soft and gentle voice, like fine willow catkins drifting with the wind. How can that be? Miss is gentle and beautiful and is so sensible. Eldest Miss is probably a little and used to it. Yes, elder sister didn't even know of my existence before, but I've always known that she's my elder sister. I really have been looking forward to meeting her since I was young. Mu Rochuan quickened her pace, almost running away. Why did she run away? Mu Rochuan questioned herself again and again in her heart. Was it because of that uncontrollable jealousy? When she saw the slender and elegant girl in front of her, she actually felt a trace of inferiority. Her younger sister, a sister she had never seen before. It actually made her feel inferior, jealous, and other ugly emotions. She didn't know what kind of emotions she should have and what kind of face she should have when facing this beautiful girl in front of her. One of them was a young lady that was held in the palm of her mother's hand, and she grew up with warm maternal love. She was pure and innocent, and her eyes were filled with the brilliance of flowers. One was a daughter who was despised by her parents and left to her own devices. Her heart was filled with bitterness, and everything she saw and heard was darkness. Now, the reason why her mother kept her by her side was not because she was her daughter, but because she still had the strength to do things for her mother. What if there came a day when she was completely useless? Then perhaps he would be completely abandoned. Hall Master, eldest Miss is here. He looked curiously at eldest Miss's pale face, wondering why she was here. Come in, Mu Qingya said faintly. Mu Rochuan took a deep breath and walked into the cabin with her head lowered. She looked straight ahead and bowed. Mother, Rochuan, come and sit. These people are Underground Hall's Hall Master Gong, Vice Hall Master Meng, and the other elites. Chapter 45-33. Explain to them what happened to Bai. Tell them what happened to Bai. Yes. Mu Rochuan raised her head and glanced over. The man in front of her had a cold, jade-like face and an outstanding temperament. The young man sitting next to him had a much gentler gaze and was equally outstanding. Hall Master Gong. Mu Qingya pointed at the cold-faced man and then pointed at the young man next to him. Vice Hall Master Meng. Mu Rochuan cupped her fists and bowed in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. She recounted how Bai came to her for cooperation and how he led his men to set up an ambush on Fisherman's Island. Mu Rochuan didn't panic and said calmly, I tried to persuade him before, but I'm not a member of Hidden Moon Hall, so I can't interfere with Vice Hall Master's affairs. Vice Hall Master Bai insisted on going, so I couldn't stop him. Mu Qingya smiled faintly and criticized, You child, Hall Master Gong and Vice Hall Master Meng aren't blaming you. It's fine as long as you explain the situation clearly and everyone understands the situation. Yes. Mu Rochuan nodded slightly and moved her lips, but she still took a few steps back. Finish your words, Gong Song Fong said coldly. Mu Rochuan lowered her head and said in a low voice, I only have a guess, and it may not be comprehensive. If you have any guesses, just say it. Hall Master Gong, my daughter is inexperienced. I see that your daughter is very smart. Let her finish. Gong Song Fong interrupted Mu Qingya and turned to look at Mu Rochuan. What do you think? Let's hear it. I feel that Vice Hall Master Bai should be here on orders. Hidden Moon Hall and Arbor have Rochuan. Mu Qingya frowned and interrupted her. Don't say things you don't have any evidence to back them up. Yes, I know I was wrong. Mu Rochuan took a few steps back and lowered her head in silence. Fan Ming couldn't help but sneer and say softly, I think Miss Mu is right. It was indeed that person from Hidden Moon Hall who acted on his own initiative. And you, Hall Master Mu, if you don't want to follow in the footsteps of Vice Hall Master Bai, I advise you to stop. Thank you for your kindness, Vice Hall Master Ming. Mu Qingya smiled. I know very well what I'm doing. Fan Ming suddenly stood up, turned her head and nodded slightly at Gong Song Fong, and then walked out. Fan Ming. Fan Yu hurriedly stood up and followed after her. The red-clothed man and the yellow-clothed man beside him looked at each other and then shrugged helplessly. Sai, what should we do? Hall Master Mu wants to capture her alive, but the little stoic really isn't as easy to deal with as you think. Hong, he stood up with a grin. And if Hall Master Mu makes a rash move and ruins our plan, it won't be good. Mu Qingya smiled and said, let's rely on our own abilities. Whether we can succeed or not depends on God's will. Heaven's will? Do you think she won't know that you planted someone by her side? Mu Qingya's face, which had been smiling since the beginning, suddenly froze. She looked up at the handsome man in red and her eyes darkened. You know, someone from Underground Hall actually knew of her plan? How is that possible? Chapter 45-34. Who doesn't know what you did so obviously? Do you think that little girl is a fool? This move of yours seems to have inadvertently arranged for someone to be sent over. The problem is, what can that group of old, weak women and children do? Have you forgotten how many transcendent God Realm experts are by the little stoic side? You want to capture the little girl from the hands of this group of people without anyone noticing? With that group of old, weak women and children? Are you naive, or are we naive? Your Excellency doesn't need to worry. I naturally have my ways. Mu Qingya coldly interrupted Red Robe and said aloofly, withdraw your men. Don't alert the enemy, Gong Song Fong said coldly. Mu Qingya couldn't resist chuckling and said in a clear voice, that's right. I've always heard Chasing Sun Hall's Vice Hall Master Gui ramble on about how the Burrowing Hall's Hall Master and Vice Hall Master are very friendly with that little stoic. I always thought that I heard wrong. Now that I see it today, I know it's true. Mu Qingya said with a smile. Everyone was merciful in the previous pursuit. If it weren't for your incompetence, why will my flying heaven need to intervene in this matter? My master wants you to give up on this matter. Mu Qingya's expression changed slightly, and she coldly met Hall Master Gong's pitch-black eyes. The people who disobeyed my master last time don't even have corpses left. Mu Qingya, Madam Mu, do you want to try our master's fury? Mu Qingya met his gaze and was defeated in a second. She suddenly smiled like a flower and nodded. Since it's master's intention, of course I can only obey. Don't do those meaningless things for now. Our first task is to find a few bases and build them as soon as possible. The attack on Devastating Island last time failed in the end. The entire island sank, so how could they build a base? If you have a good suggestion, there's no harm in bringing it up. Mu Qingya's lips twitched with a fake smile. I think Wangchuan is good in every way. Hall Master Gong, find an island nearby and settle our people down. What do you think of the Wangchuan Dragon Clan's land? Mu Qingya's eyes widened in astonishment. She abruptly looked at Hall Master Gong and asked, you want to? Gong Song Fong smiled faintly. Tomorrow, find someone to send an invitation. I want to meet the Dragon Clan's clan leader personally. Mu Qingya couldn't help but sneer. Hall Master Gong, wouldn't this be? You have a problem with it. I have no objections. However, with our current manpower, isn't it a little too much to attack the Wang Chuan Dragon Clan directly? I'm just trying to get in touch with him. I don't mean anything else. It can't be your master's idea again, right? Yes, so what? Mu Qingyao laughed awkwardly. Could it be because... What are you guessing? Gong Song Feng interrupted her gently. I advise you to think carefully before you speak. All right then. Tomorrow, I'll have Rochuan send a letter to the Wang Chuan Dragon Clan. Thank you, Home Master Mu. Gong Song Feng nodded elegantly. He got up and walked out with a group of people. Then I'll wait for the good news. Here stared at the group of people leaving and couldn't help but frown. She clenched her fists and said angrily in a low voice, Home Master, why didn't they send the letter themselves? Chapter 45-35. Mu Qingya stared at the backs of Gong Song Feng and the others. After a long time, she looked back and glanced at her, who was filled with righteous indignation. The strength of the underground hall is not something we can compare to. Since Hall Master Gong suddenly came here, he was bound to take over all the affairs of the heavenly providence. Mu Qingya's eyes dimmed slightly. As if thinking of something, she turned her head and looked coldly in Mu Rochuan's direction. Why did you make the decision and talk about the Hidden Moon Hall just now? The matters of the Hidden Moon Hall are not something you and I can manage. Mu Qingya looked coldly at her daughter in front of her. Do you understand? I didn't leave you here to cause trouble for Flying Paradise. In the future, don't interfere with anything that happens in other halls, and don't talk nonsense in front of others. Mu Rochuan clenched her hands on the side of her skirt and said in a low voice with her head lowered. Yes. Mu Qingya took a deep breath and let out again. As such, she seemed to be in a better mood, and her expression softened a little. She deliberately put on a kind face and said softly, Rochuan, Mother relies on you a lot and is very optimistic about your future. No matter what you do in the future, you have to know the severity and propriety. Mother is giving you advice. Do you understand? Yes. Well, there's nothing else. You could go out first. Prepare to go to the Forgotten Chuan Dragon Clan to deliver the visiting card. You've been there once before, so you should be familiar with the place. There shouldn't be any problems. Mu Rochuan pursed her lips, turned around stiffly, and walked straight out. In fact, she wanted to say to her mother, why can't you send someone else? Could it be that only she, Mu Rochuan, could experience dangerous things? Now that she had completely lost her cultivation, she was also a cripple. Wasn't she no different from Mu Xiaoxue? In fact, she didn't need this kind of reliance and use. What she wanted was actually very simple. If her mother could treat her with half the gentleness and kindness that Mu Qingya gave her, she would be satisfied. Instead of speaking to his daughter in a business-like tone like he did now. Every time they met, it seemed that other than assigning missions and discussing official matters, there was nothing else. He glanced at Mu Rochuan's departing figure and frowned slightly. Hall Master, treating eldest miss like this, will she what? Mu Qingya looked at he in confusion. Haven't I treated this daughter well? He had left such an important matter to her. If she has the ability, she could do a few more things, and her position in the heavenly fate rankings will rise. It was a little speechless. She kept her mouth shut and lowered her head. She didn't know if the Hall Master really didn't understand, or if he was faking it, but the expression on eldest Miss's face when she went out just now didn't look like a very happy expression. As an outsider, he felt sorry for this young miss. The Hall Master was really ruthless. He could actually do such a thing to his own daughter. Sending an invitation to the Forgotten River Dragon Clan was an arduous and unrewarding task. Last time, when a young miss had led them into the Dragon Clan's territory, they had almost been severely injured. Would those mermaids be so polite to the people of the heavenly fate rankings? Here shook her head and silently glanced at the Hall Master. Seeing her turn and walk out, she followed. Where's the Hall Master going? To see Xiao Shui. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.